15 years in prison, in Cuban prison. And so he was accused of being a double agent.
Was a double agent, sabotaged him, and they tied him up in a beach for 2 days. They shot him in the leg. He got bit by ants. They had mock executions. You name it. He went through it. I saw the market crash. I saw me losing my house. I saw having a disappointed wife, and and where we were. Not that she was a hero during that time. And having kids that I wanted to put them in the best schools that I could afford, and all those dreams that I had were on pause. And in the middle of the construction site, David, there was a sales office, and one day the owner of that development came in and saw me in there. Construction is not allowed to mix with sales. They want you to go to the bathroom in the porta potty, but I'm a princess. Right. I need to go indoors. Right. He caught me inside and threw me out of the office. And on the way out, I said to him, "Hey, let me ask you a question. What do I need to do to be in this office?" And he told me, "You know what? We're looking for a sales assistant. Why don't you come in, shirt and tie tomorrow? We'll try you out." And sure enough, I went back to my dad and said, "Hey, I'm not working tomorrow. I got another job." And I went in there in that sales office as a sales assistant. I've witnessed the impossible. And for me, that's a lot of pressure. Both of my parents' mindsets was always very strong. We're going to focus on tomorrow. We can talk great about the past. We can share some experiences, but hey, tomorrow's another day. And, we are blessed to be here in the U.S. We're blessed to have family, that we're together. And, that was most of the mindset.
Hey, everyone, David Adam Kurz here. And if you're watching this, I want to thank you for being a part of Forged into Man. A lot of people that watch this show aren't subscribed yet, and your support truly matters. When you subscribe, like, and share these conversations, it helps us bring more powerful stories to the table, create more episodes, and keep the movement going. So if this conversation has impacted you, hit that subscribe button. It helps us more than you know. Thank you so much. Now let's get back to the show. Third generation Cuban exile entrepreneur. His father fled Cuba. His uncle was actually arrested as a double agent between the CIA and the Castro regime and sentenced to 15 years in prison, which fractured his family, as you can imagine. His father left Cuba at 15 alone and ended up in a monastery in Spain for 6 months. Then he made it down to South Florida. His mother's family left on a plane after Castro took over, and his mother's only memory from leaving Cuba as a child is her coloring books being taken away from her before she boarded the plane. Born in Hialeah, grew up across Miami, attended Christopher Columbus High School, class of 1996, and previously in the 3rd grade, diagnosed with auditory comprehension challenges. He enrolled in Barry University in pre-med, wanted to be a doctor or a dentist, studied all day, 8 a.m. to midnight, until a girl at a new construction office changed his life forever and moved the entire trajectory of where his life would be. He opened up RESF in 2005, and at age 26, as the market was collapsing. Today, he runs 500-plus agents across South Florida, nationally recognized speaker, and the 100th chairman of the Miami Association of Realtors, which happens to be the largest real estate association in America with more than 52,000 members. NER Global Liaison, and is currently the 2026 President-Elect of Florida Realtors, which means that next year in 2027, he will be the president. Welcome, Jorge Guerra Jr. to the show. Thanks for doing this with me.
David, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here, and I'm very excited about this new podcast venture that you're embarking in. I love the message. I love the theme, and, let's get to it.
I think what's cool is we're going to get to it, but we've known each other for many years, Absolutely. And we've never actually sat down and done something like this.
No.
We've talked in passing, we're at the same events, and never have we sat down, glass, whiskey, water, you got some coffee near you there.
Yeah. Try to balance it out. But no, we haven't. Shame that we haven't. Because what? I think, if you look back, we both have a very similar mindset. We both like to attack the market aggressively. We're both, at least I speak this for me, we both like to fail fast, figure out what works, and, take that to the next level. So, we should have been collaborating earlier.
It's been an interesting journey, I think, for both of us. And I'm excited to speak about your journey because, again, this show is not really about the accolades that someone has. Like we just talked about your amazing brokerage and your positions in, I call it the government of the real estate industry.
For
You
sure.
know, you and your wife both have really worked your way through there and advocated for a better system for all of real estate agents. But it's really about the journey,
Definitely.
right? And I wanted to create a space where men like you could sit down and just talk about the journey and just really make a difference. And so hopefully, for those of you out there watching, this impacts your life in some way or another. All right, so I'm going to bring it to the roots. We'll
Let's do it.
start at the roots. We'll work our way up to today. Your family, political refugees, mom and dad. Uh, but I feel like that word is almost sanitized.
Well, listen, I will tell you this, that where we come from, that story is common. I didn't feel growing up that what I was experiencing wasn't unnormal. I was surrounded by a refugee community. I remember growing up as a kid, my grandparents always had the vision of, we're going back next year, we're going back next year, things are going to change. Um, but I think that, looking back, what I did see was, the power of family. And, as I looked through my journey, I'm going to tell you, David, that if I look back and I think of what really helped shape who I am, I'm going to be honest with you, was having a superstar mom, who was resilient, persistent, and didn't give up on her kids and her son especially. And, a father who put work first, family first. My father was hard labor when I first grew up, and up at 5 in the morning putting drywall, coming home at 3, going to sleep because he was exhausted, waking up for dinner, and repeating that same thing. So for me, I grew up in an environment where it was all hands on deck. It was
Yeah.
survival. At least I didn't see it as a kid because we were immature and we lived in a bubble. But looking back, a lot of their actions, a lot of the ways that they worked, the way that they thought, that immigrant refugee community of just survival and, I think really shaped a little bit of my mindset and the way that I was going to think moving forward.
I'm interested in digging into that a little bit more because when I'm curious, like if you sat down with your parents today and you just asked them, like, hey, listen, this is what I know looking back at what you guys created coming here, but what was the true cost of leaving Cuba and ending up here? What do you think they would say?
That's a great question. What they would say. I will tell you what I did observe. I did observed my grandparents coming here as a broken family. My uncle was a political prisoner in Cuba. My grandmother wouldn't come back to the US until he was free. So, we had a fractured family for a minute. Um, so I will tell you that, they'll tell you probably that they came over here with a broken family. And then once they put their roots down in the US, there was no turning back.
And a lot of people don't see that, right? They see like regime change and people fleeing and everything, but they don't see the dynamics that happen in the small parts, right? They see the mass. They see what the media feeds them. They don't see what happens to families. They don't see that broken.
Listen, imagine this, David. We've worked our whole entire lives to where we're at today. And to get here, I'm sure you've gone through major stresses, major, ups and downs, but you fought with everything you had to be where you are today. Imagine getting that taken away and moving to a country like
Yeah.
Russia where you don't speak the language.
Yeah.
Imagine all the stress you got there to get here today. Imagine how that stress would be if you lost it all with your kids and had to go somewhere else where you didn't speak the language. I can't imagine that
I can't.
stress.
I
Yeah,
can't even imagine it.
I can't imagine that
And I think
stress.
we're so spoiled here that we know it's almost never going to happen in America, right?
Well, you know what? Funny you say that. As involved as I am in politics and our industry, I always say this. I'm of that generation where I touched communism. And we're one generation away from it shifting where it changes. I think when you get comfortable and you think it'll never happen, I think that's when you open up that
When you
opportunity.
open up the door.
Yeah, for sure. So think that, as a Cuban refugee, we're always looking for these signs of,
That's
changes.
why I also think the Cuban refugee that comes today is very different than the refugee that your parents and your grandparents.
Well,
Because
listen, I think for sure one came to fight and preserve, what they earned and what they accomplished. And the other one knows that, hey, I can't be successful in Cuba. I need to be outside of Cuba to find some success.
Right.
So I think for
It's a
sure,
different mentality.
for sure.
I used to have a friend, her grandfather he used to own a construction company. He's a political refugee
Uh-huh.
as well. And he would hide money under the mattress in his house because he thought Fidel was going to make it to Miami.
Well, listen, I'll
Yeah.
tell you this. In my family's properties, in the backyard, they buried all their money before
That's
they left.
wild.
Yeah, they buried, and then that was
Because you're
common.
afraid.
Well, no, they
If you
buried.
go through it,
Listen,
you're afraid.
They buried it, and they came to the U.S., so it's still there.
Oh, shit.
It's still there. I don't know how much. I don't think it's that much, but whatever it is, they buried it back there.
Whatever it is, it's there.
Yeah.
That's wild. If and just I don't know, I guess like more of a personal question. If Cuba ever reopened and it just like completely changed, would your parents consider like going back, or are they just too disconnected at this point?
You know what? Would they go back to vacation? For sure. I've never been to Cuba, and I grew up like most kids of Cuban families, hearing the stories of how the mangoes were bigger, the bananas were bigger, and the beaches were better in Cuba.
Yeah.
So I've been painted a paradise growing up, but we've never gone back. We've taken what's happened there personal, and out of respect for my uncle, God rest his soul, who passed away. Out of respect, we don't go back until there's legitimate regime change. But I will tell you this, that and you know this just as well as I do. We live in the greatest place on earth, South Florida.
We do.
There's nothing better than this.
I agree.
And for them to go anywhere and leave, you're crazy. I remember, as I was growing up, my grandparents wanted, always had thoughts of going back. But as my parents are growing up, they're saying, forget about it. This is the United States of America. There's nothing better. We, landed, on the greatest place on earth by accident almost.
That's wild. You mentioned your uncle. 15 years in prison, in Cuban prison. And so he was accused of being a double agent. Was he a double agent or just accused of being a double agent?
Double agent, worked for the CIA.
He worked for the CIA. What was he doing?
He was signaling the boats in the Bay of Pigs to come in and attack.
No kidding.
Yeah, and his partner was a double agent, sabotaged him, and they tied him up in a beach for 2 days. They shot him in the leg. He got bit by ants. They had mock executions. You name it. He went through it. But I think what was the most surprising for me was growing up with my uncle. If you would have met him, you would have never known he did 15 years in prison. No symptoms of PTSD. Very, very calm. Very sharp-minded.
He found peace with it.
Yeah. You know what? I think more than found peace, I think he landed in heaven. He came to the U.S., found his wife, had 2 beautiful kids, and I think just put that in a little compartment in his mind and said, you know what? I've gotten so lucky. Look where I'm at right now, and let me enjoy it.
So
But I will tell you this: he never spoke about it, never mentioned a word about it. And
so how do you know the stories? Because I'm like,
a couple years before he passed away, he got approached by somebody to do a documentary, and it was the only time that he got in a room,
opened up
like this, and went from A to Z.
Holy smokes.
And we were invited to that screening after he passed away. We saw it for the first time.
So you didn't even know till after he passed away?
No.
You didn't know the details of it?
No.
Oh, man.
No, we knew the general gist, but the day-to-day,
So he was a double agent with the Cuban regime and the CIA.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And then but he was really with the CIA. And the partner was the same thing, but he was really with the Cuban regime.
No. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So his partner threw him under the bus, basically.
Pretty much.
Ratted him out. Whatever happened to the partner? Did they mention it?
If I'm not mistaken, and I'll send you the documentary so you can see it when you have some free time. Became a high-ranking official and visited the prisons and saw my uncle there. And my uncle, gave him that look. Double crosser, sabotage.
Yeah. So the documentary, what's the name of it? Do you remember?
Guerra.
Okay.
To Guerra or Guerra of Guerra or something like that. War of War.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is it on Netflix or something like that?
No, it's on YouTube.
on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, send it to me. And so if you're watching this right now, I'll link the documentary to the bottom of this so that way people can watch it. That's so wild. And so your uncle does 15 years in prison, then he makes it here.
Yeah.
Shortly after, or he got.
If I'm not mistaken, he took a raft to Mexico across the Rio Grande. They hitchhiked all the way to.
How long ago did he pass away?
I'm good with dates, but I'm going to say right before Trump became president.
Okay.
Trumper would have been so thrilled if you would have seen that. Would have been so thrilled.
Man, I'm so blown away because these are stories that you don't hear, and it's also stories that you don't know.
Yeah.
Right. Like you said, if I met your uncle, I would never know. I would never know any of this information. He would just be like some cool guy that I met. And
pretty much a little Trumper in the corner drinking Cuban coffee.
Yeah. Smoking a cigar, chilling out.
Yeah.
Man, unbelievable, man. God bless. So your father leaves Cuba at 15 by himself.
So my father, if I'm not mistaken, gets sent out to a working camp in Cuba.
Okay.
And my grandmother said, no
15
way.
years old.
15 years old. They put him in a labor camp in Cuba. And my grandmother and he escaped, got in the back of a truck and ended up back at my grandmother's house. And my grandmother said, hey, they're going to come after you. And her with the Catholic Church helped him escape into a monastery in Spain. So he went to Spain for 6 months, came back to Miami. Both parents still in Cuba. I think stayed with his aunt, and went to Miami High, and grew an afro, big afro. He grew, and then his father came when he was 17 years old to Miami, and he already started construction. My father. And so old story in my house is my grandfather couldn't tell him to shave the afro because he was working already, and he was paying his own bills, so he was like a man already. And my father shortly after there dropped out of high school, met my mother at I think it was 20. My mother was at 18 years old. They got married, and by accident, yours truly was born 9 months later.
By accident.
By accident.
So your dad came from this monastery. How was his time at this monastery? Like, does he ever talk about it? 6 months in a monastery is pretty.
Yeah, you know what? He doesn't talk about it that much. He talks about hanging out with the friends. Like there were some knives out there, and they would use the knives. But nothing more than just missing his mom and missing his family. 15 years
That's
old.
what I can imagine. You're 15 years old. You just deserted your entire family.
Listen,
really. You had no choice.
Listen, your brother's in prison.
Yeah.
Your parents are in Cuba, and they snuck you out to
What's
Spain.
the age difference between the brothers?
10 years.
So the brother was 25. He was 15 at the time.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I wanted to ask because now I'm trying to correlate that. Like he leaves at 15, brother's in prison. I'm like, wait a minute, how old was the brother? Right?
Yeah.
As a double agent. And so he ends up in South Florida as a teenager, foreign country, no family. Who's he stay with?
His aunt.
Okay.
His aunt.
I'll ask you this. Now, you know your dad. You know the man that he is. With that situation, you just told me, like, left Cuba, monastery, comes to South Florida, goes to high school, drops out of high school, lives with the aunt, meets your mom. What kind of man does that type of environment and that type of history create?
Somebody who's self-sufficient. I need to imagine, coming here by yourself, living with an aunt, mitigating parents in another country, a communist country, brother in prison, I need to imagine, survival was on his mind. How do I get the rest of my family here? How does that look like? And at the same time, I need to imagine 17 years old, wanting to have fun, wanting to party, wanting to, in the US by yourself, without parents, without curfew. So I
but also like I need to eat and live.
You know what? For sure. No one's going to give me a handout. I need to go out there and earn some money. And construction at that time, was the best paying job out there.
Still is.
Yeah. I agree.
Still is, probably.
I agree.
How much of that is in you?
So you know what? 100%.
Yeah.
They say I'm a combination of my mother and my father. I have my father's work ethic and my mom's swag. Um, but I will tell you that I've always grown up a little bit with a little bit of that guilt that, you know what, if my parents came here from nothing and achieved the impossible, what do I need to do
Right.
standing on their shoulders
Right.
here in Miami and with all the opportunities that I've had. So I've had, I've witnessed the impossible. And for me, that's a lot of pressure.
You think it changes generation over generation? Like,
For
because
sure.
your kids are going to be
Listen,
different. They don't really have that.
Dave, I got two boys that are two little girls. Are you kidding me? They're in a
Wow.
bubble. They're in a bubble
Yeah.
in Coral
Yeah.
Gables.
Yeah.
One golfs and they don't play soccer.
Yeah. They don't know anything about the
they
refugee life, the struggle, the fight.
no. I got two boys that I stay there like two girls. I give them kisses, I give them hugs. They don't know what it is to suffer. They've never
Yeah.
suffered thirst. They've always had
Yeah.
water next to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm just kidding. I have great boys, but listen, I think completely the different mindset. We grew up, reading the news, seeing what's going on, talking politics, how politics affects us, going out there, Versailles, hitting the pans,
Yeah.
very involved with what's going on with our community.
Yeah.
This generation, has changed and, rightly so in the environment that they're in.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
what it is.
Coddled. It's a coddled generation. And it's
Yeah.
our fault, by the way.
Yeah, listen, I think, and I think I learned that from my parents. My parents made it a point, to give me everything that, they could
Right.
within reason.
Because they suffered so much, they didn't want that to happen
Because
to
they
you.
didn't have it. And
But then you double down on that as
well,
you have kids.
you know what? I am a product of their effort.
Yeah.
So for me, I look at, what I think they did right, and see how I added in with my family and my boys.
It's really good, when you think about like the type of man your father became and how much of that is in you because you know the stories, you saw the growth of it, you saw the separation of it, you saw the family pain, you had the chance to experience that.
Yeah.
And so you use that to become the man you are.
Well, listen, there's more fuel to that fire. I'll share this with you. Soon after I was born, my father took a construction job in Saudi Arabia.
No kidding.
Yeah, and he left. Saudi Arabia was paying 5 to 10 times more.
Right.
And the Hispanic workforce was much cheaper. And he went over there and he worked 4 or 5 or 6 months over there while my mom was here by herself, saving enough money, David, to buy our first house. And I think that really changed the trajectory of our lifestyle of what they were able to provide. They bought a house. They stabilized their rent and or their mortgage payment. And as South Florida boomed, they were able to maintain a fixed mortgage payment.
Yeah.
With that spread, they were able to get me a tutor. They were able to get me braces. They were able to,
Do things that
invest in.
maybe they couldn't do before.
Well, listen, take their money where they couldn't. And, for me, the catalyst was real estate. And,
Yeah.
like most people, one house went up in value. My mom and my dad had twins after that. So we need to get a bigger house. But one lesson that I learned really, was really the transformative power of home ownership and the effect that had on the family nucleus, how important that was for me growing up.
Yeah. I have a great friend who he's in real estate and he decided to go into financial planning. And he felt like he needed to do this because he left Cuba. He's younger than us, but he left Cuba and he could see people coming from Cuba. And his dream is to help people financially stabilize
Yeah.
themselves when they get here so that he can help them get into a house. And the only way you have that sort of passion is to understand it.
And listen, the funny thing is that you don't understand the transformative power of home ownership until later in life. When you look back and say, look at all these things, look at this opportunity that I was blessed with because of this. And it ties up to that.
I mean,
big time.
home ownership is going to help me retire.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So your mom leaves Cuba on a plane, and she states that her only real memory is losing her comic books getting on that plane. What are the stories that we don't know based on that? What did that feel like for her? What kind of situation did that leave her in? what are the conversations that maybe you and her have had or the family have had that really extends further from?
So you know what? I will tell you that both of my parents' mindsets was always very strong. They were not one to really look back and dwell and complain. They were ones to share memories, share emotions, but
Yeah.
really move fast forward.
Yeah.
So I will tell you that conversation tone and temperament was never really of a victim's mentality.
That's great.
It was really more of, listen, this is what we're here, and we're going to focus on tomorrow. We're going to focus on tomorrow. We can talk great about the past. We can share some experiences, but hey, tomorrow's another day. And, we are blessed to be here in the U.S. We're blessed to have family that we're together. And, that was most of the mindset. Very rarely, David, do I look back? Do I think of anything negative from that besides, normal family drama?
Right.
But besides that, their mindset was one of, optimism. And you know what? We're going to figure it out. We're going to make it together.
Control.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I when I think about that type of household, I have to ask, what's kind of like the code that your family lived by? Like, what did they expect of you? What did they think they expected of themselves? Like, what was the code in your home?
I think it's a great question. The code at the home,
It's a real dynamic, like,
listen, you know what? And thinking back, the code in the home was get it done. Get it done. And you know what? Think this, David, that, I was born and 6 years later, my mother had twins.
Yeah.
And twins, in a family is like dropping a bomb in there. Dropping a bomb. I always say that twins are either a marriage breaker or a marriage,
And I'm sure you were stoked at 6 years old.
Oh, listen, at 6 years old, I was hyperactive. I was immature. I was a disaster.
Yeah.
I was a disaster. But you know what? My parents made it an effort to make sure that, I felt heard, that I was visible. But I will tell you this, that in my family, the dynamics was, man, we got to work. We got to survive. We have a big family that's here. And, we're all grasping to see,
And they expected that from you as well.
Well,
They expected you to get it done.
Well, you know what? For sure. And not as much academically, but more word of mouth, more I'm going to do this, or more these are my responsibilities, or even more, these are my morals and my ethics that I don't change from.
Right. I think it's so important.
Yeah. I listen, at least for me, it shaped what I feel is important, for my character nowadays.
I think so many families have moved away from that.
Yeah.
So many families. Responsibility, things of that nature have moved away from it.
Yeah.
It's important.
Those were non-negotiable.
Yeah. So when you were in third grade, there was a diagnosis that came, what was it, from the school?
So when I was in third grade, my third grade teacher, called my mother in and said, hey, this kid, has major mental disability. I'm not going to use the word that she used, but, it was a strong
Right.
word. And, my mom, like all moms, took it personal, but went head in, and she went and she took me to a doctor, and, I got tested. And, what I have is what's called an auditory learning channel deficit. So I guess the best way to explain it to you is, imagine listening to a scratch record. You're listening, but every once in a while, there's a missing part.
There's a missing part.
And then I got to come back and, my mind has to put that together. So my wife thinks it's, she's part of that auditory learning channel deficit. Anyways.
It's a conversation for later.
Baby, it skipped. But, they tested me, and, I did an IQ test, and it came out really well. So my mom went back and said, hey, listen, it's not that, it's not what you think. It's, he learns differently, or he's not being challenged here in the class. But from that point forward, my mother never let me slip in school again. Like, she said, you know what? You're sharp as a fiddle. You're fooling around. You're not paying attention.
Right. Now she had the proof.
Yeah.
She had the tests.
Pretty much. She had the test. But you know what? What I love about my mother is she was persistent, man. You know, she didn't give up. You know, I was, you know, ADD. I was hyperactive. I didn't like school. You know, I wanted to play. I liked the girls. You know, anything but sit down and doing
And
homework.
doing homework.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what was my interest. And you know, my mother didn't give up. She took me to tutors as much as possible. She would whisper into my ear, "You can do anything. You know, you can be the president." You know, she, you know, was a big confidence booster for me mentally.
So
be honest with
prior
you.
to this lady's diagnosis, this teacher's diagnosis, um, you just you were kind of on your own path. You're doing until mom got the test in position, and she's like, no, we're not playing this game.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty
Yeah.
much. My mom's like, "Hey, you've been slacking. You've been eating shit." You know? And you know, at the same time, I was very immature. You know, not realizing the importance of school and how investing in school long term was going to pay
Right.
dividends.
Right.
You know,
You're not thinking about that
no
when
way.
you're that age, or you're in third grade,
No
you're having a
way.
great time. You know, I know there's some kids that are like super, like, I don't know. I was
How were you? Were you a good kid or a
I
good
was,
student?
but I think it was because my mom was studying when I was born. She was in college to become a teacher.
Okay.
And so in my early years, she was an early educator, and I was her guinea pig.
Oh, so she worked you.
Dude, by the time I was 3 years old, I knew how to write my name, the
Right.
ABCs, like all that stuff, you know? And because of that early training, school just came very easy to me, you know?
Yeah.
So I
No.
didn't like, even when I was a teenager, running loose, crazy person, missing a third of the year of school, I
You
was
know,
still passing with A's,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I was more of a no homework, no classwork, but I get enough to pass. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that was my MO until
It just came easy, so I did it. Like, it was kind of like, and then those were the arguments with my mom, right? Like, she would be like, I can't believe you skipped school again. I was like, yeah, but I'm passing. You know? Right?
Listen, lucky for me, I went to Christopher Columbus High School, and there was no skipping school in Columbus.
Oh, no.
But that's a whole other. We'll get
That's
to
a
there
whole
in a
different
few.
world. All right. So, pre-med Barry, let's fast forward a little bit.
So, I will tell you that growing up, where I excelled the most was in science for the most
Okay.
part. I'm a big science buff, and when I was going into college, I looked around and I felt that medicine was something that I liked from a science perspective. I liked helping people, and most importantly, they made money. So it sort of
Yeah.
checked off
All the
ev-
boxes.
all the boxes
Yeah.
that I was interested in. I applied to Barry University. They had an accelerated pre-med program there that I got into. And I want to say I was ranked number 3 in my bio class
Get out.
when you know, I say this story all the time that, you know, I broke up with my girlfriend at that time, and then I was studying from 8 in the morning till midnight.
Yeah.
And I would get calls from all my friends, you know, "What are you doing? We're at a club in South Beach and you, George,
Yeah.
and I'm at the library in Barry." And, you know, I told my father, you know, I want to take a semester off and I want to party. And my father, sure enough, said, "Are you crazy? On my dime. You know, if you do take a semester off, you're going to come work."
Yeah.
And I said, "Sure. You know what? Let me take a semester off, sort of soak my royal oats a little bit."
Yeah.
And I started working with my father, drywall. And
That wasn't it.
and
I saw that in your face. Like,
listen, started working drywall, and drywall was tough. You know, you wake up at 4 in the morning,
yep.
you know, go to the hardware store, pick up your materials, go to the site. And the only good part about construction was you were done at 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at 3 you were done. But you were beat to shit. Can I say bad words here?
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
Good. So you were beat up. And I did it for 2-3 weeks. And in the middle of the construction site, David, there was a sales office with air conditioning, water, and a cute girl working in the front desk. And I would gravitate towards the sales office. You know, let me get some AC, let me get some water. And I would make Cuban coffee for the girls, you know, whatever
Yeah.
it took to get in that office.
Yeah.
And one day, the owner of that development came in and saw me in there. Construction is not allowed to mix with sales. You know, they want you to go to the bathroom in the porta potty, but I'm a princess.
Right.
I need to go indoors. He caught me inside and threw me out of the office. And on the way out, you know, I said to him, "Hey, let me ask you a question. What do I need to do to be in this office?" And he told me, "You know what? We're looking for a sales assistant. Why don't you come in, shirt and tie tomorrow, and we'll try you out." And sure enough, I went back to my dad and said, "Hey, I'm not working tomorrow. I got another job." And I went in there in that sales office as a sales assistant. I want to say that, like most, people in that situation, I started asking questions. Hey, what's that contract? How do you fill that out?
Yeah.
How do you do this? And why do you do
Right.
this? And
Right.
sure enough, a week or 2 weeks in there, my boss came back in there and I said, hey, let me ask you a question. What do I need to do to sell? I'm listening to these people talk and, I think I can do better. And that's all he needed to hear. Sure. You think you do better, tough guy? All right. And sure enough, at the end of that month, I was the number one salesperson.
Wow.
When I ran the numbers, I made more money than any of my friends out there. And I went from, I want a party to, man, you know what? This is an interesting opportunity.
This makes sense.
I don't know how long I have it because I'm taking a semester off. So I want to, so what I did was, instead of working there from 9 in the morning till 6, I said, you know what? I'm coming at 10 to 6, but I'm not taking any days off. Coming Monday through Sunday. And boy, did my boss like that. He's like, I got this kid, hungry kid.
Yeah.
So I started working Monday through Friday. Obviously, the ladies in the office weren't too thrilled with my extracurricular activities.
Yeah.
But that didn't bother my boss. And to make a long story short, from there, at the end of that semester, I told my boss, hey, I'm going to go back to school. And he got me in his office and he said, hey, listen, this is my future plans of buying and selling. And I want you a part of it. And when he showed me some numbers, I looked at it and I said, you know what? That's what doctors make nowadays. I go, you know what? Maybe I need to stay here a little longer and then go back to med school. And sure enough, that was 2000.
You were 20 years old at the time.
Yeah, that was 2000 as the market started booming. I stayed in that company for probably 6 or 7 years. I became one of the top salespersons there, made an incredible amount of money without a financial education on what to do with those funds.
Yeah.
So think early 20s, making big money. I thought I was a rapper, but it wasn't going to end. But incredible lessons from that experience. Sharpened my tongue, sharpened my eyes on what, gave me an IQ on pre-construction. It was an incredible experience and taught me incredible lessons.
Yeah. So this is your first big win, right? And you end up not going back to school. Does it ever cross your mind? Like, I don't like to use the word regret, but do you ever sit down and think and go, shit, I could have been a doctor?
So when the market crashed, David, I went back to med school.
Did you?
Yeah, I enrolled at the University of Miami.
No kidding.
For one semester. And as I was roaming those halls, I said, you know what?
This is like 2007, so you're like 7 years in the industry already.
Listen, market crashed. I have an office in Coral Gables. I have an office in Doral. I'm calling my phone to make sure that it's for real, that nobody's just calling me,
Wow.
And I looked at my 401k, David, and I said, you know what? I think I have just enough to go to med school. And real estate, if you were there.
I was there.
Man, I had no signs of life.
Oh, bro.
I didn't get any REOs.
I wasn't the REO receiver.
I was, I was in the, so I'll share this with you. After I left, my job, I opened up RESF.
Yeah.
And I opened up RESF.
It's 2005, right?
Yeah.
You opened it up.
I want to say I picked up $250 million worth of listings pre-construction during that time.
It's like 550 homes.
Well, it was mid-rises and mid-rises and low-rises down Little Havana and Northwest 7th Street.
Mm-hmm.
And the market crashed. I even had a development in Doral, and the market crashed on me. And so it took me maybe 12 months to dismount from those developments as people, were figuring out the market. And that was what sharpened me the sharpest.
So hold on a second, because RESF is obviously still alive and pumping.
Well, not pumping, on life support. So think I had 2 offices, maybe 15 agents at the time. My focus was...
No, I'm saying today.
Okay.
RESF is alive and pumping, which means you pushed through.
Yeah.
But you also went back to medical school.
For one semester.
Okay. So that one semester was what? Like, you went back and you were like, I'm going back, but RESF stayed open. You still had some agents, I'm assuming?
Yeah. So you know what? We had agents, but our market, David, I don't know if you remember back then.
No, I remember.
Our market stopped.
Yeah,
Stopped.
I remember.
Stopped. And, I remember fishing for direction without, talking to REO managers, trying to get lunches. At this point, what do I need to do to get an REO? And nothing was panning out for us. I did go from 15 agents. I dropped down to 3 agents.
Okay.
At that time.
Okay.
And
people had to go figure it out.
And those 3 agents weren't, they were fighting their own jobs, trying to figure out their own direction. So it was almost a, reset.
Yeah.
And I remember walking the halls of and saying, you know what, I just got my wife pregnant, just moved into the house of my dreams. I was in my mind going to become the short sale of my dreams.
Yeah.
And I was walking those halls and I said, you know what, I need to get back in here. I need to get back into the game. Real estate's what I know, for some reason, something whispered into my mind saying, don't give up, man. You know what, you're going through this hard reset. You're not the only one, because all my peers were there. A handful of the REO agents were killing it, but everybody else was trying to figure out direction. And I said, the market needs to shift. I told myself that if there's ever a time to lose it all, it's in my mid-20s. Looking
how
around.
How the hell do you have that perspective? People in their 20s don't have that
Well,
perspective.
you know what? I remember looking around at all my friends and saying, none of my friends are doing anything. They're all living at home.
Yeah.
And I'm 25, and I have some great momentum. I had a vision. And when I was playing in a good, healthy market, man, I was getting my market share. So I knew, in a moving market, I'm going to move. I know how to move. I know how to be successful. In this market, there was no book, there was no direction. It was a nuclear bomb.
Yeah, it was out of control.
So for me, looking at my peers, looking at what's going on, I'm going, you know what? And think this, that I want to say right before the market crashed, my net worth was millions.
Yeah.
On paper.
Yeah.
On paper, when the market crashed, I was negative millions.
Yeah.
That fast, that shift.
And it was overnight.
It was overnight. There was no way to prepare for this. And so for me, don't get me wrong, that mindset of, what, I rather, at 20 something years old, it's a great time to lose all my money and start all over. But those thoughts were surrounded by high stress and depression and
it had to
freaking
be
out
terrifying, man. Terrifying.
No, listen, Little Wayne says, my biggest fear is the bottom. And during the market crash, we got a sneak peek of what it was to be in the bottom, and worse, coming from the top, which is even worse.
I had a little office prior to the market crash on Miami Beach, on just south of 5th. When you make the right on 5th coming off the ramp,
okay,
that first building there has these little townhouses towards the front. And I had one of those townhouses was my office prior to the crash. And I was not only selling real estate here, I was selling real estate in North Carolina.
There you go.
Because my father had a project in North Carolina.
Yeah, no, listen, it was a
and then
shooting
the
fish in a
market
barrel
just
back then.
completely disappeared. I ended up renting a little space in the back of my friend's credit repair business in Hialeah.
So I have a good, so I'll share this with you. I had 2 offices, one in Doral, one in Coral Gables. And when the market crashed, I definitely had to get rid of those 2 offices. And I ended up working in the bottom of an executive office building where you rent a mailbox and you rent them, by the month.
Yeah.
And what I did was I bartered with the owner of the building and I said, let me run your executive offices. I'll rent them out, give me the keys, I'll show them, just give me a free office in the corner.
No kidding.
Yeah. And, he said, all right, anybody calls, you show them, you write the leases, you send it to me, and you get that office for free.
Do you think that's the resourcefulness that most people have?
Most people don't have resourceful.
Right. Right.
They
What do you
don't.
think gave you that resource?
I'm going to be honest with you, having a front row seat of watching my parents do the impossible.
I love hearing that.
Yeah. It's powerful.
I love hearing that. I love
Powerful.
hearing that from people when they
Yeah.
really
So
conceptually think about
there's
it.
no excuses. I saw it, from 2 people that didn't speak the language, that came over here, with all the adversity in the world. And I'm here with all the privilege in the world. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I have no choice but to make it.
So in retrospect, still extremely terrifying or perfect timing?
For
That whole time frame with the crash and everything.
It's the greatest lesson of my life. Greatest lesson of my life. It taught me financial responsibility. I got a PhD in finance right after that in my mind. It forced me to trust my thinking out of the box, to trust my gut, to look at a market and say, hey, this makes sense. Go for it and fail, or go for it and it works.
Yeah.
But go for it.
But go for it.
But go for it. And you know what? Most of my go forwards were successful. And those that, didn't work for me, were my tuition.
And you could see it too, like when you look at the people that are still in the market like we are and suffered that kind of craziness, those market shifts and that crash. They say some of the greatest, most stable companies born from that fire.
Well, listen, I say this, that when the market crashed, real estate was reset. Whatever you knew in the past,
it was gone.
Well, remember this.
We're doing 2-3 closings at the same closing table for the same property.
Listen, the market crashed as the internet boomed.
Yeah.
So it was really a seismic shift on the industry pausing, and then a new generation of players coming in and changing
completely
the way.
Changed the game. So that leads me to this. You describe yourself as born in the boom, raised in the crash. It's on your business cards. It's on your website. It's almost your identity. When did the crash thing, it defined you rather than destroyed you? Dig into that a little bit more for me.
Listen, I think, and David, I'm sure you share the same sentiment as well. We're both men. We're both leaders of a family, and coming into the real estate crash with your wife, being pregnant, building your house, which now you can't afford. Talk about incredible pressure, at least for me. I want to make sure that my wife has a house that she can go in there, that she's proud of, that she can nest and have her kids. I want to make sure that the same benefit that my parents gave me with that stability, that pressure, that I wanted to give that to my boys as well.
Right.
And when I was in that time looking forward, I didn't see that. I saw the market crash. I saw me losing my house. I saw having a disappointed wife, and and where we were. Not that she was a hero during that time. And having kids that I wanted to put them in the best schools that I could afford, and all those dreams that I had were on pause with a big question mark on where do you go from here.
Like I got to talk to you about this mindset. Like if you could take yourself back to that position, now you're looking at your family, you're going, I have no choice.
Yeah,
because if I allow to happen what I think is going to happen, lose my house, lose my wife, lose my kids, and you're thinking that, your wife's a rock star. She was with you the whole time. Did you end up keeping the house? Did you lose the house?
Yeah, no. So lucky, I'm going to tell you this. I lost everything but the house.
No kidding.
Yeah. And I love to say this story that I moved in November. And David, I'm not a religious guy, but that month I prayed. And I said, hey, Jesus, let me make enough money to pay the mortgage this month, and we'll short sell it first quarter of next year. And I'll use that, 3% of that price to maybe put a down payment on a townhouse or an apartment and start all over again. And December, RESF made just enough money to pay.
No kidding.
January, just enough money to pay. And then,
you just kept going.
Murder, she wrote. From that point forward,
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And so you're in this mindset, but as a man, that's how we feel, right? Like you're like, oh shit, I'm going to lose everything. I'm going to lose my wife because she's going to be upset with me because I didn't man up to the game. Like, we don't immediately think, I don't believe we do. We don't immediately think my wife's going to totally understand what's happening unless you have that much experience with her.
Well,
right?
well, you know what? Listen, luckily for me, I have a wife who's a fighter who.
But you guys were early in the marriage.
Listen, so we were a team, and I will tell you this, that when the market crashed, she got a full-time job. She went into the medical industry, and there was times that her paycheck, paid our rent before we moved into our house.
Yeah.
So she definitely held the fort. But for me as a man, I wanted to be that
fort holder.
I want, babe, get that extra money and you buy whatever you want,
Yeah.
Get your clothes and pay for your car. That's my role. I take that very personal.
Hey, let me speak to you man to man for a second. I wrote a short book called Forged into Man. It's not a long read. As a matter of fact, you probably finish it in under an hour. But don't confuse short with light. This book lays out the 10 rules, not suggestions, that define how a man shows up when life gets heavy. It's about ownership, discipline, truth, strength, faith, and carrying responsibility without breaking. I didn't write this to motivate you. I'm not a motivator. I wrote this to give you a code. If this podcast has ever resonated with you, if you're in the season where you don't need more information, but you need more direction, this book is for you. You can find Forged Into Man right now and learn more about it at forgedintoman.com. Read it once, read it twice, live it daily. Because when the fire comes again, you should be not asking why, but you should already know exactly who you are. Let's get back to the podcast, guys.
How much do you think marrying the right person helps with your success in life and business? And
50% of my success.
I think it's everything. I really do. Because you're surrounded by it all the time.
Yeah,
You got to go home to it every night.
They got to be your motivator. They got to be your inspirator. They got to be, the
support system.
the one that builds you up, your refuge, the one,
TPR.
the one that you want to go home, the one that you want to come home to, the one that you want to work for.
Yeah, yeah. I believe that. It's funny because that's why I was asking you, because it was early in your marriage, right? Like, I think I'm married to the most wonderful woman in the world. But in the early days of our marriage, you're still kind of questioning things.
You are. She's a star.
Yeah, thank you. And early in the game, you're like, if I'm falling apart, I'm worried. I'm worried because I'm like, this is not who she married. So like, and then, but now, so many years later, if we were to face challenges or something, I know she's got my, so it's a different mentality when you're earlier in the game and younger and worried and you got all these responsibilities and, the boys and everything else.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So most brokers in 2008 doubled down on what they knew. You shifted. You made the internet your friend. You saw something different in the internet. Nobody else was getting on it. Nobody else was betting on kind of tapping into the internet. And I've always known you to be a marketing guy, right? Like you're very specific with your brand. I've seen you teach branding classes, which are fantastic. Where does that conviction come from? Like being able to make that shift and see something no one else was seeing at the time?
It's a great question. And I will tell you that goes back to as the market crashed, I didn't stop trying to figure out how to do a deal in that market. I didn't stop trying, different avenues to grow my business. And I remember I was knocking doors in Coral Gables, and I got inside someone's house, and we were talking real estate, and she told me, listen, I like your enthusiasm. I like you knocking on my door. But Sally Jesse Raphael has been selling real estate in this area for the last 20 years, and she sold my parents a house, and she's probably going to sell, my house. Mm-hmm. And it was a reputation that this, and Sally Jesse Raphael is the name I'm making up, by the way, for the story. and she
hosted like a show or something, right?
But it was a testament to me at that point that it was reputation, man. This girl, I walked in here, no matter how savvy, how smooth, this lady has built a tremendous reputation in this area. And I asked myself, how can I fight reputation? How can I fight reputation and win? And the only thing that came to mind, so let me rephrase it. So I got stuck with that thought. How do I beat reputation? I'm in my mid-20s. I'm here fighting for my life. I want to sell and make money. And, I don't have that much notoriety. I don't have that much of a name brand.
Yeah.
How do I get out there and how do I win? And I remember during that time, a friend of mine came to visit me and he was in New York. He was studying film, and he got on the computer and he went online and he showed me a 2-minute short film that he filmed. And during that time, YouTube wasn't around, didn't exist. I was blown away by his ability to get video and put it in the computer. Just that act to me.
Just that act, yeah.
I was blown away. And at that point,
different time.
At that point, when I saw that, I said, man, the only way I can beat Sally Jesse Raphael is if I can go and shoot video and demonstrate properties online during this online boom. And I told myself, like, the future is going to be, if this guy can put video there, why can't I? So I asked him, how did you do this? And he told me easily. I bought a MacBook or a Macintosh. I got Final Cut Pro, and I got a Panasonic DVX camera from Panasonic. And so I took notes, and like most brokers, let me pay some tuition. I went and I bought it all, and I learned, and I learned how to shoot video. And next time I knocked on a door, and they said, Sally Jesse Raphael, I said, let me share with you what I do different. And I said, our industry is going online. Let me tell you what I do online. Do you think this would be a great idea? Do you think this would help sell your property? And sure enough, video really struck a chord with the audience that I was talking to. And I need you to imagine that video, when I shot it, was on a tape deck.
Yeah.
So you would shoot it on tape. You would go to your house. You would press play it into your computer. And I want to say, 2 to 3 minute video would take you 4 to 5 hours to render. But
now everybody puts their whole life on video online, right? It's wild.
Well, listen, it goes to show how, I had such an incredible value proposition that was so hard to do. Anybody can take video, but can you take video and take it out and edit it? And can you edit it and upload it? And, with the right file type and put it up there? It goes to show how fast technology has gone, where, now there's technology out there where I can take pictures and my pictures become video. I'll share with you this, and I'm sure you're seeing it now. We've seen a lot of real estate brokerages that have built their moat around technology, which is about to be taken down right now.
Yeah.
So man, we're about to go back to, where I was when the internet boomed. We're going to see some new pioneers.
We get a whole new thing right now.
New pioneers come out of our industry.
My opinion is that AI is the new internet boom.
Yeah.
It's going to change the game forever.
Yeah.
Question
is, are we too old to get it? Is that next generation?
I don't think so.
Whoop our butts?
I think the next generation is going to definitely be better than we are, because they're going to grow up with it. I mean, think about it. My kids grew up with an iPhone in their hands. My nephew and my brother-in-law Gene is behind the scenes right now recording this. My nephew is like on the iPad all the time showing me his YouTube channel.
Yeah.
He's got a YouTube channel, man.
Yeah.
Game
has changed.
My YouTube channel has been around since the beginning, since YouTube first launched. And I'm always harping at people, do video. And people are like, oh, Dave, you say that because you're a natural on video. I go, yeah, go to my channel and scroll back.
Yeah.
Scroll back when I was wearing the baggy gray suit and I had these 4 realtors standing behind me like they were Rockettes. And I was like, please, welcome to 123 Main Street,
Yeah,
But
listen.
you did what you had to do. I mean, we didn't know what we were doing, but we had a guy with a big Canon, recording us. And I can't even remember how he sent it to me or if he had to come plug into my computer or what.
God knows.
Yeah.
But anyways, so for me, that just, witnessing that and going out there and learning how to do that really shifted a little bit of my mindset into the marketing sphere. Also, to give credit, my wife, I don't know if you know her background, but she was the publisher for Maxim Español. She was a publisher for ESPN,
No kidding.
ESPN en Español. So she comes from the magazine world. So when it comes to branding, she was the one that, came to me and said, hey, you're doing all this video stuff, but the only way that people are going to the only way to buy real estate in people's minds is to create a pattern, create a branding and keep it consistent no matter what. So you'll see that in all of my videos, man, in the bottom right-hand corner.
Is super consistent.
Well, listen, I was the first, so I was one of the original ones there. So everyone has the same music, same logo. So man, people would tell me, man, I hear your videos from afar, and I know it's you. So for me, she sort of gave me that aha. You know what?
Yeah.
I'm doing all this awesome, cool stuff, but if I don't brand it accordingly, then it's going to be just internet noise.
Yeah, the biggest mistake people make is shifting their brand off this.
So for me, as soon as I started getting some headway, the first investment that I did was a designer to create a brand package for me. Thorough. It was probably one of my most expensive investments there. But it was sort of our guide, from now forward, we die on this brand.
This is what we do.
Yeah, we die on this brand.
We die on the sword. Yeah. Now, this is what I find interesting. So I know a lot of the coaches out there. I know Mike. And Mike Ferry is old school as hell, man. Mike Ferry is...
I took his words personal. I don't know if you know my
so
stance.
That's what we're going to talk about now. So Mike Ferry is, everybody's like AI and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And they've got big screens everywhere and they want to show you all this cool stuff. And Mike comes with a flip chart. he's coaching you on the flip chart. And I am the type of person that really appreciates that because I do a lot of print marketing. And so people, yeah, everybody's online. Everybody's online. Everybody's doing the same shit, the same TikTok, the same reels,
Yeah.
the same everything. And we do all of that because we understand the importance behind it and we understand the implementation of AI. But also, we understand the Mike Ferry school of thought, which is you got to get in front of somebody. You got to give them something that they'll remember you by, right? And so we do a lot of print marketing because we find it sticky, right? Like somebody scrolls past your ad on Instagram and it's gone forever, right?
Yeah.
But when I hand something to somebody personally in front of them and shake their hand, chances are my little magazine or my little postcard or whatever it is that I handed them sticks around for a little while in their kitchen cabinet or in the junk drawer or,
Yeah.
on the bedside table or whatever it is. And so we do a lot of print marketing because of that. And it's funny because it almost feels like it's like a circle, right? Like they used to do a lot of print marketing and somebody told you that shit doesn't work anymore. So they went to the internet and then the internet went to massive overflow on the internet, then social media, now AI. But it also feels like it's kind of coming back to this personal relationship. And interestingly enough, you mentioned it last night. So we were together last night at an event that you hosted. And last night you said it. You said it like people don't forget about their personal relationship, right?
Listen, I think the biggest muscle we need to start exercising is connections, how we make people feel, how we build trust moving forward.
That's going to be the win.
Know it.
That's going to be the win.
Know it. And if you can carry that through video, even more powerful.
Even more powerful. Yeah. So talk to me about the situation with Mike Ferry. I'm very interested to know because
so you know what, I'll share this with you. When I was first in the industry, I heard Mike Ferry very cockily say, "I've made a living doing what brokers are supposed to be doing." And I took that personal. And today, till today, I do 80% of the trainings in my office. We train Monday through Friday. So I one of the things as a broker, and I know you take this as personal as well, is you know what? Nobody has a better pulse in South Florida than me. Because I'm hands-on. So who better to teach South Florida? Don't get me wrong. Mike Ferry has given me incredible itineraries, things to focus on, but I want to be the face. I want to be the messenger. I want to be the one behind it. I think Mike Ferry today represents, that missing piece that has always been missing from unsuccessful agents, which is the fact that you can't rely, you can rely on many things, but it has to start with you prospecting first. And then any marketing arena that you go to, if you're consistent, will pay off eventually.
It's so funny. I downloaded my contact list. I gave it to my assistant. I said, "Hey, I need you to do me a favor, go through the contact list, separate, like if it's a company, put it in a different tab. If it's a realtor, put it in a different tab so I can separate personal contacts and all this other stuff." And so a couple of days later, I go, "Hey, what's up with the contact list?" She looks at me. She goes, "I have 5,000 contacts." She's like, "Give me a minute," And I think, a big part of the reason why I'm creating the separation is because I want to re-engage with people personally.
Yeah.
I think it's so important.
Well, listen, I think every once in a while you got to pause, look back in your business, and reorganize and reprioritize and what we know is important. And our business, we're always spinning plates, so it's very easy for us to get off track.
Yeah.
But you're right.
Yeah. We have to get back to the personal, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right? Like, everybody has their thing. Obviously we do all the online stuff. We carry a strong brand. You know that. Shoot, I tattooed it on my arm. Like it's not changing.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I've ever done in maybe the last 20 years of having this logo and this brand is change the color scheme. And I didn't find it as a mistake because we just, in my opinion, made it. I started to do psychological research on coloring.
Okay.
And I was very like light blue and white, and I got away from that because a lot of the marketing psychology talks about how it's calming and there's a trust factor, but it's calming and it doesn't really relay a message, So we went to black and gold, which is kind of like bold and in your face and that was the biggest change that we made. The logo's still the logo no matter what.
Yeah, but black and gold pops. I like
it does. So RESF today, 500 plus agents, 4 offices. Am I right? Boca to Key West.
Yeah, We have 5 offices.
5 offices from Boca to Key West, right? So north, south. You're ranked as one of the top 1,000 brokerages in the country. Started with a listing-only strategy in early tech. What were the 2 or 3 decisions that actually built the firm? Not the pitch, but the actual decisions. 2 to 3 decisions that actually built that firm.
So I think number one, the decision to commit to a certain standard and level of marketing.
Okay.
So I think that was number one. I think the other thing that changed the trajectory was the fact that I focused on recruiting, and I made that one of our most important. Bring in new talent, and to maintain the talent that we have there. So that was a big catalyst.
You have long-term agents. You've got agents that have been with you for 10,
And
15 years.
I'm very blessed that I have some great people, that believe in working hard, that believe in honest work, and that understand, the power of stability and the power of loyalty. I think that pays incredible dividends. I have agents that, the day of tomorrow, I got to go and donate a lung. I'm giving them the lung. They've earned that. If there's a situation, we got to put out a fire. We're going to do it. Loyalty, pays major dividends, in our business, in our lives, in our friendships. I'm sure you adhere to that as well. But I've been very blessed to have a squad that, during the internet change, believed in me, invested in that direction, and they pay dividends, and they pay me back with loyalty and love and respect, and vice versa.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this, David, that my greatest joy and the closest I come to giving birth is finding somebody who's new, teaching them the ropes, and seeing them become successful and changing their lives.
That's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's the epitome of leadership.
Yeah, I think that's
right. Because, there's a lot of different types of leaders. But I think the true epitome of leadership is bringing up the future leaders.
I agree.
And being excited about it, by the way.
Listen, I think that's what fuels me. That's what gets me up in the morning. Even though I say this, I've never worked in 20 years in my life. I've always jumped out of bed with an incredible excitement and an incredible love for this industry.
Sometimes I can be pretty confident. Some people mistake it for cocky. I really don't feel like I'm cocky. I'm a confident dude, bro. I know what I know, and I'm excited about it, and I'm not gonna hold my head down when I walk into a room, But I get super flushed when people tell me, dude, what you taught me changed my life. And and I've had people walk up to me, oh, hey, I read your book. That was like game changer. Thank you for that. And I'm like, I don't know what to say, bro. I get completely shy. All of it goes away. All my confidence is everything. And I'm like, oh, well, you're welcome. And I'm sure you've had people walk up to you time and time again over the years and say, Jesus, George, thank you.
Yeah, I have.
How does that how does that make you feel? And I mean, what's your reaction?
So you know what? I don't feel shy like you do for the most part. You know what? Deep inside, I'm going, thank God, thank you. You know what? Yeah. That's what I was trying to do. And you know what? So many times you don't get that thank you, and you've earned it. You've worked your butt off. You've given your,
No, it's true. You get far less thank yous.
Yeah,
than
you get it.
Else.
So when somebody takes the time, you're like, you know what? I appreciate that, man. You know what? You made my day today. Nothing can go wrong today after what you just told me.
Yeah. And I walk away feeling like that. Yeah. But I never look at them and go, with that full enthusiasm. It happened to me in New York. We had the big conference that I do with New World Title, the New You Real Estate Conference. And Tom Ferry's our guest speaker when we do that one. And we're up there, and I'm walking down the aisle. Everybody's coming in already. And a guy stops me. He grabs my arm, and I turn around. He goes, hey, I read your book, The Truth About Failure. Thank you for that. That was great. And I was like, and then I walk away, and I'm like
come
excited.
On, let's take a picture. Let me tag
what I mean?
you.
I totally forgot. I don't know what it is.
You're my
brother.
new buddy. You're my new buddy.
And of course, when I walk away, I thank God. I'm like, thank you, God, for giving me that opportunity to influence that one person.
You can be frying French fries at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Instead, you're changing the trajectory of people, and it goes to show sometimes small things make a big difference.
Yeah. So you're, you started filming the HD videos, walking through houses.
Well, listen, I told myself this, I am not going to get a listing in my market unless I'm doing something different.
Right.
Because, during the market crashed, a lot of these listing agents doubled down on their marketing, on their print.
And nobody else believed in you, by the way.
Well, no, listen.
Everybody thought you were crazy. Like, this is a crazy guy with the camera.
So you know what? You know what? As crazy as it was, people were impressed. They're like, "What? You got to, wow, you put, you got this video here, So people, I didn't listen to the haters. I focused on my vision. I had a vision, and I told myself, I will have more confidence walking into a listing arena and asking for business if I had this technology during these times. And when I would put my sales pitch together, I was like, damn, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Damn, I want to hire myself.
Yeah.
Let me go in there and pitch it. So you know what? I believed wholeheartedly, during that time, that if you were going to list a property, you wanted to go with this offense.
Yeah.
And that I was going to cross my T's and dot your I's. I was young. I was hungry. I was a tech native, and you wanted me on your side. I believe that, in my
110%.
heart when I would walk in there. And I wanted to show and tell you. And if you were there during that time, you would have felt my enthusiasm. You would have felt my fire. It would have broken your heart to tell me no.
And that fire, that enthusiasm, that confidence, it blocked what the haters were saying. But what were they saying? Like how?
I don't hear the haters, David.
Yeah.
No, so
You
know
don't
what?
listen.
So you know what?
Just don't hear them.
You know what the haters were? Get a job, do something for real. Leave the sector. Real estate was dead. But
What about your new direction of marketing? What were the haters saying about that?
You know what? I was alone. There was no haters. I was alone. Market crashed. I was by myself. I was with my wife in her room, pregnant, looking at a computer, saying, "What can I do?"
Get this little video on here 4 hours from now.
Or let me tell you, what else can I do? What can I invent? What am I missing?
Yeah.
What? Where's my blind spot? What am I not seeing that I need to see? Because I need to figure this out.
Your father, what does he do now? He's retired, I'm assuming.
No, my father works every single day.
What is he doing now?
The most successful he's ever been. He has a drywall company.
Okay.
So he went from laborer
From
to
laborer
starting a
to
team
owner.
to owning his own drywall company.
And so your father had a role or has a role in the Latin Builders Association.
Yeah. My father was one of the first directors there.
And so these are Hispanics pooling money, lobbying, funding candidates.
So these were Hispanics that got together because they couldn't get a permit in Miami.
They couldn't get a permit.
Couldn't get a permit.
Right,
It was
that's what I wanted to get to.
it was controlled, by different classes of people, and they knew that if they were going to, move forward in this city, in this economy, they needed to get equal representation, or
They had to have
needed,
people on their side.
or they needed to get respect for who they were and what they were doing. So they got together. They created an organization, and they started lobbying and showing what was wrong and what needed to be done, and they became a very powerful group. When you get together, you put money behind it, and
I'm picturing this in my head, right? Like,
So-
a lot of people don't think about how things happen, right? Like today, I can get a permit, no problem. I'm Hispanic. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares,
Yeah.
right? But it wasn't that.
No.
It wasn't that before. You're Hispanic. You didn't get a permit.
at all. Well, listen, you didn't speak English. You
didn't get a permit.
You didn't
And
get
so
a contractor's license.
you had to pull all the Latinos together, put money together, and create influence together so you
Yeah.
could fund candidates that would then fight for you.
Pretty much.
But nobody sees that. I feel like
No.
we're making a Netflix special right now.
Well, listen, I will tell you that my involvement in my board is an offspring of that. Seeing that involvement.
That's what I was going to lead to, because how does that influence
Well-
you as a leader in the involvement?
So-
Because I've always known you to be very involved.
So
And-
I will tell you this, that my father's involvement in the Latin Builders, as soon as I was in my early 20s, I got involved in the Latin Builders.
Okay.
I became a junior director there. I became a director, and then I became part of their executive board. I was part of the group that brought the first website to the Latin Builders. So that was my, hey, George will join our executive board, and he's going to run the website part. But I got a front row seat, David, of the most powerful people in South Florida. The way they spoke, the way they negotiated, the way that they created consensus. I had the most powerful people in a boardroom that I would sit down there for once a month and then go have drinks with them after. And I was quiet. I was listening. I
You
was
were absorbing,
I was
you were learning.
impressed. I was blown away. I was taking notes.
Some of those older guys are the best. They're the best
Listen,
at it.
my success,
and it's like natural.
listen, I would say that my success in the boardroom has been from the master class that I got on the land build. They taught me how to network, how to get consensus.
Yeah.
And I learned from the most powerful people in South Florida.
And I appreciate that from people like you. That's not me, right? Like, I'm excited that there's people like you
Yeah.
that sat through that, went through that, so that you could do what you do for the rest of the community now. Because I think I became a member of like the whole FAR thing where I sat in the big room and like we voted on stuff. And I did that like 1 year, and I was like, this is not.
Yeah,
I don't belong here.
it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. But I will tell you this, that the land builders, taught me what it was to have a say in the industry. And for me, you've been watching the real estate news, what's going on here and there.
Yeah, yeah,
Man, to me, more important than ever, I want my say. I have a great pulse
yeah.
on the industry. I'm an independent with a nice size. So I have a good temperature
Yeah.
of what needs to happen. I'm still young enough to have good
Input.
business IQ within the industry. So for me, it's more important than ever to have a seat in the table representing, us
Yeah.
agents.
That's huge. What other than watching your father do it, and other than the education piece and being able to have a say, what really truly motivates you to keep climbing the ladder in positions different? Because I also feel like you've like held big positions and smaller positions and medium positions.
So you know what? I like to be involved. So,
Okay.
so I'll give you an example. NAREP, I was their education chair for 2 years. They wanted me to sort of get more involved. And I said, you know what, education, this is where I like it. I'm really
Yeah.
good. And this is
Right,
a space that
like you weren't trying to
I
become president.
want to learn. Yeah, well, this is where I think I provided the most value.
Okay.
Personally, I think what I've learned is, especially David, and as an independent broker, you know this as well. You were
Yeah.
independent for a while. I don't have the network of an LPT. I don't have the network of an EXP
That national
or of an
touch.
Anywhere or a Compass. I'm solo. I go back into my cave and I concoct ideas. And the board has allowed me to rub shoulders with a David, to rub shoulders with other people. And what happens is, when you build the bonds, the brokerage colors are gone, and
Yeah.
we have straight, candid
Yeah.
conversation.
It's
and,
very different.
And one thing that we've learned as I get older and as time goes on is that there's no secret to real estate. It's just hard work,
Yeah.
consistency, trust, and there is no secret yet that I've seen. Maybe with AI it might change. But we're all in the same circle. We're all suffering the
I
same
think it
stuff.
doesn't change. I just think the work changes.
Yeah.
It's still going to be do the work, right?
But for me, I think it was the access to top performing people in my
Yeah.
industry, to be able to sit down and break bread,
Yeah.
to me was a continuing of my education and building up my IQ, not to mention from a network perspective, David, being involved with Miami, I can pick up the phone and call David and say, hey man, I have a problem with one of your agents. And chances are, man, we'll be able to resolve it with common sense, than dealing with somebody who I don't have that access with. When it comes to referrals, I know somebody in every part of Florida. So if I have a client that needs something, I have that IQ. Being involved in the National Association of Realtors, goes even farther. When I first got in the industry, I knew the 20, 30 agents that I did business with. When I got involved in the Miami Association of Realtors, I know hundreds of agents and brokers now. When I got involved in the National Association of Realtors, now I have, a national IQ of realtors throughout the whole entire country.
And let me tell you something. That's like a doctorate's degree
and
in
listen,
education.
and for me, global's been one of my passions. So man, I have, realtors all over the globe that I am connected with in one way, shape, or form. And for me, referrals, as much as people think you get them all the time, they're far and few in between. But it's really the network, the IQ, the questions, the opportunities that you see there. That for me has been, what I didn't expect I was gonna like the most. I said, man, you know what? This has been an offspring of all this involvement, and I love sharing, meeting people, talking shop. Like you saw Cigar Night. To me, I love sitting down, having a drink, burning a steak for an hour and a half, and just forced to talk shop. That's where I am in. That's my element. It's what I like.
All right, guys. So I'm here at Elo Collective, who happens to be one of the sponsors of the Forged Into Man podcast. I've been doing testosterone replacement therapy for probably 15 years now. The older you get, the crazier things get.
Correct.
But I want to naturally attack these things before they start attacking me. This is not a one-size-fits-all
Correct.
situation, right?
Correct.
Everybody's different. Everybody's built different. If you're in South Florida, it's right here in Coral Gables in Miami, Florida. But if you're not in South Florida, just reach out, and what they'll do is they'll send you that prescription.
Right.
You'll go to your own lab, send it to them, and then they get like a telehealth call,
We can
right?
do a telemedicine, correct, review the labs, see, where it is that that person wants to head lifestyle-wise or, health-wise, what are their goals.
I want you guys to take care of yourself. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
Thank you
for
so much,
having us.
David. Bye.
I'm such a big believer in what you're saying right now, and oftentimes, I get tired of saying it sometimes. Oftentimes, I'm coaching agents, and I tell them, get out of your bubble. There's a mastermind happening in San Diego, go. It costs $10,000, trust me, go. Right? Like, just go do stuff, to the point where over time, I just started doing it on my own, like creating masterminds and doing events and things like that.
Well,
Because
listen, same thing that I did. You did it in a different way. But you found the value of, you know what, face to face with either my competitors or my peers.
Yeah.
And
we move it around the world. I did
Yeah.
one in Calgary. You know what I mean? Canada, man.
Yeah. And let me tell you something. Every time, and brother, I know it all in my industry. And every time I go somewhere, I find something I didn't know. I'm going, damn, you know
Absolutely.
what? Another golden nugget. Just when I thought,
Yeah.
I knew it all, this guy comes in here and teaches me something new.
I hosted this mastermind in Calgary, Canada, and I hosted it with a couple friends of mine, who are from one's from Canada. He lives in the Calgary area. The other one's from California. And so we said, let's do this mastermind over there, and we'll invite agents and brokers from all the different offices. There are about 10, 15 people at the mastermind. What we do is we rent a big mansion and we make it super comfortable. Everybody comes in like, t-shirt, whatever. And you're chilling for 2 days, right? And every single time we do something like that, like, yes, I'm one of the leaders, quote unquote, to put it together, and we'll start the ball rolling, but eventually it changes. Where I'm sitting on the couch and somebody else is sitting on the chair, and I'm like just in awe with what they're saying and how they developed and what they created. And maybe it's not something I'm willing to do because it's, whatever, but you're learning how other people are really developing and creating their businesses. Insane.
Well, listen, you might not do it, but you might find somebody that you're coaching or somebody that you're working with that say, you know what, that pattern, that might work for you.
That might work for you.
Let me share with you this story.
Exactly. So you've hired younger as you've gotten older and by design. And I want to ask you, what does that say about your ego? Because most people want to remain the smartest person in the room. Doesn't seem like that's your goal.
Well, listen, if I've hired younger because I'm getting older. So let's just say that there's more of a hiring pool underneath me. But I will tell you this. The reality is that younger generation is the one that's practicing at the speed of now, the one that's looking at innovation. And for me, the older I get, the more I realize that I do have blind spots and I need people to fill them in. I need people to tell me what I don't see. And usually that younger generation, tech savvy generation is the first one to call your bluff, call your BS, and to make sure you're on the right track. And if not, enlighten that path for you.
How do you stay the person that all right, so because we all know, right? We all know, we were the younger generation at some point, and we're looking at somebody going, hey, guy, you got to do this. And they're like, no, that's not the way it works. How do you refrain from being that guy? How do you listen to this younger generation come in without looking at them as, bro, you guys don't know what you're talking about, and taking that information and digesting it and going, man, they might be onto something.
Well, and how do I do that? I look at the income first. So if you're making money, then I'm looking to see what you're doing, and then I'm buying into the culture. But if you're not making money and you're trying to do something else, and and I've been around the block a couple times, I'm going to tell you. So for me, I look at income is my first tell. If you're making money, so I have one of my favorite agents. His name is Tony, and I remember Tony came into my office, 19 years old. And he says, you know what? I want to sell a hair salon. And I looked at him thinking, hair salon, I sell real estate. I sell houses. I sell this. And he went in there and he sold the hair salon. and he charged, I'm not going to say percentages. I'm not sure what the antitrust laws are here. But he charged a certain commission, and he came in there, and then I want to say 6 weeks later, he came back, with a $12,000 commission in a sale. And this is a 19-year-old kid that just jumped in the market. And I called him into my office, and I said, "Hey, come over here. What are you doing?
What are you doing?
What are you doing?" And he told me, he's like, "Listen, I got a hair salon for sale. And when I told you about it, you told me, go find other hair salons and tell me you have it for sale." And I told him, just to get off my back.
Yeah.
And he went out there.
And he actually did it.
And he knocked on other hair salons' doors, and he went to a beauty supply shop and put a flyer in the back of the beauty supply shop where they had the cork board.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, all of a sudden, I've got a bunch of calls. As a matter of fact, I have a new hair salon that I have for sale. And, it just sort of opened my eyes that, hey, this kid is doing things different.
He's still with you.
He's my...
That's the guy I met yesterday.
So Tony's a walker and a knocker. But he uses, he takes advantage of just simple concepts. Hey, George, you know what? Businesses are open all the time. When I cold call them, they pick up their phone. When I show up there in person, I can meet with the owner. And, to give you my favorite hair salon story, he'll go to a hair salon and say, "Hey, I'm selling this for $60,000. And the owner of the hair salon will say, "Let me talk to you outside. Send that for 60. If you sell that for 60, come back to me. I'm going to give you mine for sale." And, he just, he understood the fact that he can prospect face to face. And he can create print material, like you said, that has a great shelf life. I give it to the owner. It stays on his desk. It stays top of mind. He leveraged our branding. He used video to tell the story of the businesses, where we came from an environment where it was 5 pictures and a biz by sell.
That's it. Yeah.
So he capitalized on face to face. He capitalized on a strong print game, and he capitalized on technology, to really help grow his reputation. Today, Tony doesn't knock on the door. He gets bombarded with phone calls from different people, from different sectors. He's built his IQ in that sector, from hair salons to restaurants, to different, businesses.
Mm-hmm.
He understands the licensing of businesses. Shopping centers will call him and say, "Hey, we have this, awkward, business. Can you find?" "Yeah, I have a perfect match." So it's been for me, that was one of my biggest aha moments. Aha, George, you don't know it all. Sit back, look at, who's making money, who's creating business, and ask yourself, are they doing it through non-traditional methods? What are they doing differently?
Yeah.
I say that only because us as trainers, we get people, and, we tend to jump into what everybody's, call this person, get in line in this. And what happens is they really don't get any reaction. They leave the industry. So for me, I'm always looking, for what somebody, how did he strike a chord in this sector? What did he do differently? Because, real estate is saturated on all fronts. Anytime you can pay $600 and make $1 million, everybody joins. The best of the best come into our industry. The question is, who can separate themselves from the pack? Who can find a new way to make money and exploit it?
And it's funny because business sales is, I kind of put that in the same category as commercial sales, commercial real estate sales.
It's the hardest genre of real estate.
And the
genre.
reason I like when I put it in that category is because it's behind, right? Usually commercial real estate's way behind what the residential agents are doing or how they're marketing or prospecting. The commercial agents are like, nah, that's not going to work for a building. You know what I mean?
Well,
and so they're not thinking
I got my
way.
method. I've done it the same way.
I've been doing this 40 years, and I'm good to go. It's funny that you said first thing I do is look at how much money they're making, because
that's the tell. That's the tell.
that is the tell.
David, how many people walked into your office? I got this idea. I'm going to do this. And you're like, are you kidding me? You haven't even done a rental. Get out of here.
I'll tell you a funny story. And Mom, I apologize. Mom, I love you. But like my mom came to me one day and she's like, "Listen, I got to talk to you. I'm watching you and your wife from a distance, and I got to talk to you about your relationship." And I go, "Stop." And my mom is single, to preface what I'm about to say. And I look at her, I go, "Mom, I don't take financial advice from broke people. I don't take diet and nutrition advice from fat people. I don't take marriage advice from single people." She looks at me, she goes, "You're an asshole."
Unless you're going to tell me what you did wrong. And then
and she left it alone, actually. She, like, it almost clicked on her and made sense, and she walked away.
Like, you got me.
Oh, man. Listen, talk to me about RESF Cares, man. 12 months of giving. Agents involved in the community. Talk to me about that.
So you know what? For me, I've always thought that I'm bigger than a commission.
Hmm.
I'm here to make a difference. One who's a lot has been given, a lot is expected. That type of mentality. So for me, I wanted to find consistency in giving. And, instead of sporadically giving or giving whenever the situation came, I wanted to make it a priority that we were going to find a way to get involved and make a difference. So 12 months of giving, the theory and, the attempt behind it, and it's always a work in progress, David, is that every single month, I want to give a financial contribution to a charity. Okay. And at the same time, I want to give some sweat equity as well. So I want to do both. I want to go there, roll my sleeves, get to work, and I want to cut a check on the way out. And I like to get my agents involved. So I don't like to repeat the same charity. I like my agents to bring in a charity, one that they're passionate about. Number one, they take the lead, so it takes some relief off me.
Yeah.
Number two, by getting involved in different charities, my goal is that one of my agents falls in love with that charity, and I leave some RESF DNA there working while we're going to different charities, but identifying other people's pet passions or pet projects, by diversifying a little bit of our involvement in the community. We do have some charities that are permanent. We have an autism one that's permanent. We have a beach cleanup that's permanent. We have a pet adoption one that's permanent. But outside of that, we like to look for opportunities in the community.
How does that, from a business strategy, how does it turn into something deeper? And I know that, look, I want to say, I know that you're not doing it to get something in return, but I'm Jewish. We believe in tikkun olam, right? And so, like, that's like, we're designed as human beings to leave the world better than we left it, right? But that also goes around. It's reciprocal, right? How does that work, and how does that fit into your business strategy?
The way that it works into my business strategy, honestly, it's helps me create culture within my company.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. So for me, my agents want to get involved. My agents want to participate. We're online. We're separated by a computer screen. David,
Yeah,
agents aren't
yeah.
coming to the office. We got
No,
to bring the
they
office to
barely
them.
come. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think there's a human need for that connection.
Yeah.
And there's only so much connections we can have at a bar, at a cigar bar. There's a demographics that wants to get involved and make a difference, wants to take a lead, wants to lead in that arena. And for me, I've been very, very blessed in this industry. I have a guilt need, to get involved, to make a difference. I'm sure, like you, we get hit up all the time for charity stuff. So for me to find an opportunity to organize it, to strategize it, to make it part of my culture, to me was something that I wish was my idea. I copied it from somebody else. That I thought was a great idea, and I said, you know what, this would represent,
You get to know your people better.
yeah, and you know
'Cause
what,
you get to understand them on a personal level, because whatever they're fighting for, whatever charity they're fighting for, it means something to them.
listen, and we've gone out there, David. We've done kind birthday parties. We've done birthdays for kids that don't have a birthday party in special housing. We've gone to farms where they had prisoners that are in the middle of getting free, working on farms. We will go there and donate clothes. We've helped animal shelters. We've seen firsthand the impact of just every once in a while looking at that sector and getting involved. And to me, again, it helps me with my culture. It helps me channel a little bit of the activities and events that we have away from training, away from politics, and just focusing on.
Did that come from anything in your past? Like you say, you stole the idea of how it's built from someone, but did the idea of giving, that process, like, did that come from any major thing that
Listen,
turning point in your
it
history?
came from the beginning of my schooling. I went to St. Timothy Catholic School, so I was raised in a Catholic environment. I went to Christopher Columbus,
Yeah,
which till today I'm very involved in service wise, giving back to him,
that's awesome.
to my grade school as well. Growing up in that Roman Catholic environment, You get your moral compass, you screw it on really tight. Your guilt is on a high level, so
Yeah,
you have to
yeah.
give back.
I get it.
They did a great job of instilling the fact that you're here for a greater and a bigger purpose. And
When I had my first daughter, I was in the Marine Corps already, but I was a young Marine, and I think I made a whopping like $12,000 that year, you know, and we had base housing, but base housing is not furnished, right? So we had like one busted ass couch that we bought for God knows how much. My probably was a hand me down. We had maybe one pot, a couple plates, like we didn't have anything, and I was working one day. I worked in the armory, and the master gunnery sergeant calls me to the front. He goes, "Hey, take this paper, go to headquarters Marine Corps," because I was stationed on Quantico, Virginia, so HQ was there. Let's go to headquarters Marine Corps, go to this room, and check in. I have no idea what I'm doing. And so, you just do what you're told. I'm a PFC at the time, like nothing, right? Bottom of the barrel. And so I drive over there, and I get there, and I check in, and this lady takes the paper from me. She looks at it, and she goes to grab these 2 construction style black garbage bags, right? Completely filled with I don't know what. And she goes, "Don't open them here. Take them home. Go open them. You got the rest of the day off." Okay. So I grab them, put them in the car, super heavy bags, one at a time, put them in the car. I drive home. I put them in the house. And my ex-wife at the time, I was married to the mother of my 2 daughters at the time. And she goes, "What is this?" I have no idea. We open it up. George, if I tell you,
pots and pans, everything you need.
pots, pans, diapers,
Give me goosebumps.
anything that a baby needs. Blankets, clothes, socks, little head coverings.
Yeah.
We have bottle warmer, plates, forks, knives.
Yeah.
Everything you could imagine that any normal family probably should have in their house. We didn't have it, and we were absolutely not prepared to have a newborn baby, And when I tell you I found the photo of my ex-wife laying in bed, it was a mattress on the floor with 2 milk crates
Wow.
zip
Look at that.
tied to each other on the side. It had like one on the bottom, one on the top, and they were tied together with zip ties. Actually, I think they were tied together with wire because I had wire from the armory, and I was twisting them up and holding them together. That's how we lived.
How did that make you
And
feel when we got those bags?
changed my life. So
Right?
every year I do Toys for Tots
Yeah.
because of that. Marine Corps did that for me. I want to do for the Marine Corps
Yeah.
again so that they can continue to keep doing that for other families, Then, of course, we hold the charity event once a year, the comedy charity event. And so typically my wife will choose a charity that we're going to donate to that
Yeah.
year.
Powerful.
And we raise a bunch of money and we do it. This year we're going to, the gaming systems that are at Nicholas Hospital for the Children's Cancer Ward, they're
Yeah,
all
change them
old.
up.
They're like 20-year-old gaming systems, right? So we're going to change them all to Nintendo Wiis.
Nice.
Super cool stuff. And again, like I'm getting goosebumps thinking about that story because it changed the entire direction of giving back,
Yeah.
right? Giving back
That's powerful.
and knowing. So you've been climbing the Florida real estate leadership ladder for well over a decade. Secretary, treasurer, vice president, president-elect. Most people don't understand how that structure works and why it matters. So break it down for the men who think politics.
Well, listen, I'm going to tell you that I don't think politics. I think I think that there's a fact that if you're in this industry, you have a duty,
A moral obligation.
to be involved in some sort of sector of it, to impact. For me, I told you earlier, I always found it incredibly beneficial to have the network of all these leaders, the involvement, the training, the sharpening of myself, learning from them and being involved with them.
I
Having
feel
a-
like you have to be built for it, though.
No, you know what? I don't think I'm built for it.
I think
Yeah, you know what?
all day.
Thank you. But I don't, and maybe it's imposter syndrome. When I'm there, I don't feel it.
Like I'm like, one day you're gonna be the mayor of Miami.
Yeah, no. I'm gonna. So you know what? I don't like politics. If you can imagine that. I think that I'm a very private person for the most part. But man, I have an opinion, and I have a belief in what I feel is right. And I feel that I feel when I'm in these arenas, man, that when I speak, I make an impact. I feel that I bring an incredible amount of common sense to a lot of complicated topics.
Yeah.
And I feel that when I'm in a room, common sense, consensus, I help, bring it together. I feel like I make a real difference when I'm there. And I think that's a big catalyst.
Yeah. Do you, I don't say this with doubt, but just
Right.
curiosity. Do you really make a difference being involved? Like, do you really feel like in the years that you've been doing this, that you've been able to impact positive change for the real estate community?
Game changer.
Yeah.
Game changer. And I'll tell you just a couple of things off the top. I think from a legislative perspective, the fact that we took away sales tax on commercial property, has been a game changer for business coming in, for owner operators, for businesses in Florida, period. I will tell you from a technology perspective, Florida Realtors brought in Forewarn. Have you used Forewarn yet?
No.
Oof, you're missing out on probably one of the best tools out there. Forewarn is an app you put on your phone that when you get a phone call, you put that number in there and it tells you who they are, what car they drive, what their background is, what their record is,
kidding.
what their credit is, what courts they're in. It's forewarned. Before you meet a stranger, you type it in there. You'd be surprised how many people have come up to us and said, "Hey man, you saved our lives. I was about to meet a predator or a pedophile or something like that."
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And we live in a world of online leads and you want to go get that money.
And listen, not only you want to get that money, but if you're a female, you'll
Yeah.
run to put yourself in a
Yeah.
close proximity for 3% without doing any background
Yeah.
checks.
Yeah.
Which is a predator's dream.
Yeah.
So for me, I think bringing in some of those tech, and that's just a safety tech. Think that we are investing and looking for tools and technology that keeps the realtor in the center of the transaction. So we are proactively looking for tools and techs to make sure that we're in the industry tomorrow.
I might have some for you.
Good.
Good friend of mine created something great.
Listen, we're always looking, for those type of techs that move the industry. I will tell you, what's coming up the pipeline with, possible reduction of homesteaded properties. I think that's going to be a game changer, for South Florida. And for
I think
me,
it's huge game changer. affordability.
listen,
Wow.
I think, insurance is going to keep on going up. If taxes keep on going up, we're not going to be able to afford them both. I think one has to give. But I do think that a lot of the decisions, have had major impact. Now, don't get me wrong, David, we don't make impactful decisions every single day, but every, 12, 24 months, we hit a nice little grand slam that changes a little bit of the trajectory of our industry.
I'm cynical.
Yeah,
So,
no,
like, I've sat in that room before and thought,
listen,
I'm a pawn here. Like, this doesn't even
well,
make sense.
listen, I will tell you that from the back of the room to leading the room, it's a different
surely,
perspective. And it's very tough from the back of the room
to make a difference.
Well, it's very tough in the back of the room to really appreciate or get the whole feeling, without being there from the back and going to the front and experiencing and going through that journey. But I will tell you this, I'm very comfortable with the leaders that we have there today. I think we all have our minds in the right direction. I think we're going to go through major changes. I was a COVID president for the Miami Association of Realtors. So talk about, a time of change. So for me, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to some of the changes that are going in there. I'm more excited than ever. I'm looking for this AI revolution to see, Florida Realtors has
Where it goes.
an $11 million innovation fund. So, I'm super excited to get a front row seat on what companies go in there and pitch and where that's going. But I could imagine if you're not in the inside, from the outside, how it can easily look like some fluff or some BS. But
ego-driven people at the front.
Listen,
right?
and you know what? There's all of that.
There's always going to be that.
There's all of that. But in between there, I love
There's some really solid people.
Listen, I love to say that the cream at the end of the day rises to the top.
Yeah.
And there's some creams that you can't stop from rising, and they're there to make an impact. They're there to make a difference.
Yeah.
We have another Miami member now that I'm super excited about, Fernando at Encivia. Talk about a guy with a great pulse on the industry, a great IQ, and someone who's able to separate himself, from his business and look at the majority and make the right decisions. It's exciting times with exciting people. And
I'll ask you a question. I hate to go this direction because I don't want to make this all about real estate,
No,
but
try me.
I'll ask you this question, and my brain works in this way. And you tell me, Dave, you're right. Dave, you're wrong. This is why. Right? I always said if I ever became the governor of Florida, one of the first things I would do is sit with Florida Association of Realtors and say, we just got to make it a harder barrier. What are your thoughts on that?
Into what?
Like to get into the industry,
into
the
licensing.
school licensing, education, testing.
So I will tell you that the governor now has the opposite view. So do our legislators. I don't know if you know, but the last session, they were trying to get rid of FREC.
Yeah, I remember.
And they wanted to get rid of continuing education.
Yeah,
completely. And they wanted less barrier of entry, less education.
I don't see how that helps the consumer.
So what it does is, you don't see how it helps the consumer, but they see how it helps more people get into the profession.
But why do we want that?
Now we, the governor.
Yeah.
And now we want to protect our industry. The governor wants more industry.
But why? I don't even understand why.
Listen, I don't understand it either. And but I will tell you this. I'm not sure if I would go in there and find ways to limit as much as I would try to go in there and find ways to enforce bad behavior and policing and that stuff. I'm not against education. I'm a big believer in to cut hair. I got to do what a year in barber school.
Yeah.
I think that.
But to sell somebody's largest asset, you just need X amount of hours in a school and a quick state test.
64 hours and a high five.
Yeah, and if you fail the test, come back in 48 hours.
Yeah,
say it again and
listen,
again.
I do feel your sentiment, but government and private industry don't align on those thoughts for the most.
My two frustrations are always like the easy barrier of entry and also the language barrier. The fact that we offer the classes and the state tests in different languages.
We don't.
It bothers me.
We don't.
We don't anymore?
No.
We used to.
Florida passed a law. The official language of Florida is English.
But that's recent.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of real estate agents that don't speak a lick of English, and they're helping people sell their houses on English contracts. And that kind of bothers me. So I'm like, how do you know what the contract says? And if your client is non-English speaking, how are you explaining it to them?
So the answer is you're not. You're getting
you're sign here.
Well. So you know what? I think the irresponsible ones are sign here. But I think that at least for with my perspective, if I'm dealing with somebody that doesn't understand the language, we have an attorney in the middle to represent that person.
And that's the smart thing to do.
Yeah,
I think that's the smart thing to do.
Yeah.
At minimum, have some sort of translations for the contract.
So I will tell you this, that I know where your mind is with that.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that that's a tough struggle.
Yeah.
And I will tell you this, you'd be surprised how many people only speak Spanish, only practice Spanish here in South Florida. I want to say that the second largest business language in Florida is Spanish.
It's Spanish. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, we just had our real estate magazine for the very first time, a digital version in Spanish. And the idea is really to help educate those Spanish speakers to where they need to be.
That would be fantastic.
I think with the boom of AI, we're not going to have any of those issues moving forward.
Yeah.
We're getting our Spanish.
Somebody put their meta glasses on and read the contract.
Well, listen, I think the biggest skill set of any successful agent is their ability to be resourceful. And AI is an incredible resource. I just came from Brazil, where I used AI to speak between me and the Brazilians. So I need to imagine that my Spanish speakers are dropping that contract in there and saying, explain it to me in Spanish.
God willing, man. God willing.
They're finding resourceful ways only because language has been taken away.
Yeah. So you chaired the NAR Emerging Business and Technology Forum.
Yeah. So I'll give you a funny story for that. That was my first.
You went to Dubai on a trip.
Well, no. So national. I think that was my first national position.
Okay.
And it was an election that they had. So this was probably my claim to fame. So during that year, the president of National Association of Realtors said, I'm not going to appoint this chair. I'm going to have
a vote of
the whole entire nation. So at that time, me being a tech background, I said, who better for emerging tech and technology than me at the time? So I put my name in the race. I reached out to NAREP and I reached out to Women's Council, two organizations that I volunteered in the past, have given a lot back. So I leveraged those two. I leveraged my Miami Association of Realtors. I leveraged Florida, and I won the whole that year. I love to say this: Ted Cruz tried, Marco Rubio tried, but I was the only Cuban to win a national election that year,
Nice.
and that was the NAR Emerging Business and
Telling you,
Technology
brother,
Chair.
man, mayor, governor.
Well, listen,
I could see it, brother. I could see it.
I appreciate that.
I could see it. Hey, just a quick second of your time. I work privately with founders, executives, and high-performing men who are at real inflection points. Moments where the wrong decision costs years, relationships, or peace. This isn't coaching, motivation, or accountability. It's confidential, strategic counsel focused on clarity, restraint, and judgment when the stakes are high. I take on a very small number of clients at a time, and I work deeply, not publicly. If you're navigating something complex and need clear thinking without noise, this may be a good fit for you. Reach out to me at forgedintoman.com. Now let's get back to the podcast. NAR Global Liaison, you went to Dubai on a trade mission.
Well, listen, I'll give you a good
Spoke
story.
to Spain.
I'll give you a good story on that one. That was after my COVID.
Okay.
I was a NAR Global Liaison, so I got to zoom around the world. And David, the most interesting thing about zooming around the world was, number one, that I was Cuban. So I'm traveling around the world, zooming around the world, coming from a country that has no home ownership, talking about home ownership. But the most impressive part for me was what people thought about Florida during that time. That was my biggest takeaway. And I would zoom around the world, and people would come back to me and say, hey, Florida, you guys are coming out of COVID. You guys are open? Yeah, we're open.
Yeah.
So people saw freedom
Yeah.
in Florida.
Yeah.
Second thing they saw was they would go on the news and you would see California leaving your trunk open and your windows down so they don't break your window. And here, Florida, we had a very strict police state. So they saw freedom,
And
they saw
safety.
safety. And the last thing that they saw was everybody was moving down, coming over here, starting their businesses. So they saw opportunity, safety, freedom, and opportunity was my biggest takeaway from that experience. Is, man, I live in the
What an
best
incredible
place
opportunity.
on earth. Yeah.
What an incredible opportunity. You worked hard for it, man. Now next year, you're Florida Realtors president.
Yeah.
And for those that don't know, Florida Realtors sits at 187,000 members, I believe.
260.
264.
Yeah, we are the
Wow, my
largest
research is off.
trade association in the
Yeah,
nation.
largest trade association, like everywhere. When you take that seat, what are the 2 or 3 fights you're bringing to the table?
It's a great question. Number one, data is one of my biggest issues that I have. I'm a big believer that we have missed major opportunity when it comes to the data that we create and the way that we disseminate it. And I look at the music industry as my guide. You know, we bought tapes, we bought CDs.
Mm-hmm.
Then Napster came out, and we didn't buy a song after Napster came out.
No,
we
right.
actually downloaded every music that came out,
Yeah.
but it was tough. So we now say, you know what, give me $10 and let me subscribe to some sort of music
Spotify
provider.
or whatever. Yeah.
So the industry shifted with their data. Us as realtors, we haven't shifted.
We haven't shifted at all.
But as a broker, I take this very personal that I have to go and I have to recruit an agent. I have to train an agent. I have to go and get a listing, take on that listing liability. Okay. Get my agent to go and write a beautiful story about that property. Go out there and take spectacular pictures. Even go out there and produce a movie. Talk about, the amount of collateral that we create. And then as brokers, we go and we give it away. Other people get that data. They monetize it. They do 10,000 things with that. And we don't get anything back in return.
Right.
So I want to hire a data scientist and look back and say, you know what? This data is worth more than gold.
Yeah.
Where did we go wrong?
It's very true.
And moving forward,
We're just giving it away to national companies.
all liability and giving it away. That doesn't work well in my mind.
I think I sit with you on that. My biggest fight with that is I can't believe that we give away all that data, but I can't look up properties in Sarasota.
So
What?
So For sure.
And then I got to fight with somebody in Sarasota about my commission because they want to tell me I'm not a member of their association. I'm like, yeah, but I'm licensed in the state of Florida.
Yeah.
I
feel your pain. And what crushes me is that my clients can go on an app and search the whole entire
The
nation.
whole nation.
And I'm stuck.
But I can't pull info for them.
So think that, David, that's tip of my spear when it comes to my fight. And I think that concern falls deeper than that. It's more about, I'm not going to be in the industry. I'm not able to do it in the future. My industry will be taken away from somebody that can.
I feel like we used to say real estate is a local business. I don't think it is anymore.
Game has changed.
Game has completely changed. The internet changed everything.
The
social media took it to the next level, right?
Yeah, right. I think you're 100% right, but I think you feel my sentiment on data.
Yeah,
we missed the boat. We're giving it away. We get all the liability, and we go out there and we spend huge amounts of money to create this content, and then we're liable for it.
Yeah.
We get sued for it. And for me to give that data away and not get a piece, so my thoughts have always been I've always wanted to create what I call a broker's bill of rights, where we go, us brokers get together and we create, the rules for our data. And we've never had that. We've always pawned that off to third-party people that haven't taken our interest in mind. So for me, those are one of the things that I want to bring up to light. And I get to tour the state and I get to bring that up. The other thing that I have on my mind is politically. I think that we are the largest trade association in the nation. I think we walk a little bit too carefully. In my land builder days, we were very strong. And if you were for us, we had your support. And if you were against us, we were going to invest in a candidate that was aligned with our priorities.
Right.
So for me, I look at the National Rifle Association and they're non-negotiable. No background checks, bump stops, they're non-negotiable. Yeah. I want to have that attitude when it comes to housing. And housing, I think, is apple pie. It's very easy. I think that we need to be very strict on the taxation of housing, on the regulation of housing, on the insurance policies and the way insurance businesses attack real estate. I think we have to understand, like I said earlier, the transformative power of homeownership and really protect it. And as realtors and as a realtor industry, we need to draw a line and say, these things are non-negotiable.
Yeah.
And if you cross it, we're going to invest in and find people who align with those values. And, we've been a little nice in the past.
Especially with insurance.
And
I always wondered, why are we afraid that insurance agencies are going to leave our state? I almost feel like we should have the attitude of, hey, do you want in? We'll let you in.
Well, and it's a much deeper conversation. And the issue is that Florida is such a litigious state that the insurance have to come over here, and instead of hiring 1,000 adjusters, they got to hire 1,000 attorneys, and that's the climate that Tallahassee has provided for them.
Right.
So it's a little bit more complicated than that. But for me, we have major things coming in the pipeline. We have Airbnb and Airbnb rights. We have taxes and insurance that are really affecting homeownership. We have the condo issues with their funding and being able to get a loan. So man, there's so much things that I think that we need to hit hard. We need to be aggressive with, and we need to find a resolution for.
Does any of your history?
Last thing is education. I think that that's always been my forte. But I think that making sure that my year I bring in top talent that is there talking about real estate at the speed of now, where it's going and where it's heading. Those to me are my 3 priorities.
It's funny. I when I had my independence, I was sort of against the association holding so much. And the reason I was against it was because I did a lot of training. And I felt like my association was competing with me because my training wouldn't be a pinnacle point because they could go to Mickey Mouse Realty and they could just go to the association for training and it made no big difference, right? And so I felt like it was positioning me in a where I couldn't prove my value for the split that I was asking for.
Fair.
Right? Hindsight, like it's necessary.
So I'll tell you that I like to use the association to create a base.
Yeah.
So I love to tell my agents that there's 1, 2, 3s or ABCs of real estate that I want you to master. They're simple. Number 1 is search. So go to my board and take all the matrix classes. Number 2 is value. How much are things worth? So go over there and take the tools that we use to value. And number 3 is forms. So I want you to learn search, value, and forms from the board. But when it comes to knocking on doors, what to say, how to market, how to prospect, that's where that's where I have that unique local IQ and advantage of what's working and what's not. So I like to use the board for base. And I like to hit on local knowledge. But let me tell you what I tell my agents in my classroom. I always end my trainings with, by the way, I think I am the best trainer in real estate in the whole entire world. Then I go to YouTube and there's 10,000 people better than me that are out there.
Yeah,
so I always say this,
just doing it.
Training starts here, but it doesn't end here. And I've matured to the point where, I know that there's better people out there. My job is to, number 1, enlighten you, show you that direction, because you can go down a rabbit hole in the World Wide Web and become an uber expert in any sector you want.
Yeah, become a professional learner.
And at the end of the day, once you get it, what do I want to be? I want to be that beacon of I want to sound off with my broker. I want to go and ask him some deeper questions, or I trust him and I want to go and So for me, my role shifts more, from a mentor, from a trust figure, from somebody who's not going to rob you, someone who's going to protect your back, compared to I'm going to show you all the secrets of real estate.
Yeah.
I think one of the humbling parts about being a broker is understanding that, hey man, you don't know it all. And you need to leverage whatever you can, put your pride down to make sure that you're building the best agents out there.
Do you feel like your history and your parents and that influence has really put you in this trajectory of caring so much about the industry and wanting to be in those positions?
I think
other than maybe the Hispanic builders.
Listen, I think they've all played a catalyst in there.
Yeah.
But I think as I've been involved in the industry, I will tell you that it did help me stay relevant and competitive. It did help me see what other people were doing, and allowed me to remain confident in what I was doing.
Okay. Let's switch gears for a minute. You're married to an incredible person, to Nora. Not just your wife, but an instrumental part of your business, right? Like your partner. How do you guys separate marriage? And because you built the business and the marriage at the same time.
Yeah.
So how do you guys separate the business, the marriage, the family, that kind of stuff? How do you keep some sort of border between them, if you do?
Yeah, no, we do. If not, we wouldn't be married.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah. Because they'll eat each other alive.
Well, listen, I think this, we're both very passionate people who give it all when it comes to our business, our family. Our secret is that we work out of separate offices.
No kidding.
Yeah. So she works.
But it wasn't always like that, though.
No.
Right?
Well, you know what? It wasn't always like that. Wasn't always like that, but I think that.
But that's the secret now.
So you know what? It's tough, man, because you know what? We've worked together through many years, but during the hardest times, we had to be sure.
Yeah.
You had to figure things out and be resourceful.
Yeah.
And now during the good times, or let me rephrase it, in the stable times, now we're able to say, you know what? I'm going to cover this office, and you get away from me. You go to this office.
Yeah.
I have the luxury of having 2 boys, and one of them goes to high school right behind my Dayland office.
Okay.
So for me, I bought that office right after COVID. So, I told my wife, I'm resident DJ of downtown Dayland. So I'm going to go drop off my son, and I go to downtown Dayland, and around 3, high school's over. So I would go pick him up, and, I'm done for my day at that time. But I fell in love with downtown Dayland. I there's a pub that's next door. There's a cigar bar where you went to.
Yeah.
So for me, I made it my community, and I love going there. I drive there every single morning. And that separation allows me to come home and say, babe, I've missed you, girl. Give me a kiss. Give me a
Yeah,
hug.
that's awesome.
Where am I taking you out to dinner tonight?
Yeah.
And also in our company, we both have different roles in my company. And, we try to stay in our lane. And only when I deviate from my lane do I get in trouble.
So you have 2 boys.
Yeah. I got 2 awesome boys.
Dominic and Alec.
Yeah.
Your brother and sister are both doctors.
Yeah.
Also the path that your parents wanted for you.
Yeah.
Right? What are you hoping that your parents, your sons achieve? Like, what is your parental goal for them? Because they got their own goals.
Listen,
what's your parental goal for them?
That's a great question. And, it's one that I
You want them in real estate?
So you know what? I want them, like it's going to sound cliche, but I want them happy, man. I want them happy.
Yeah.
And I will tell you this, my kids are not going to have the same pressures that I had and that my parents had and that my brothers had.
So build differently.
God willing, they're able to, start a life when they're ready with a nice little capital base, with an incredible infrastructure of 2 or 3 generations that have built, a strong foundation for them, to live and, their lives and make a difference. I have my youngest boy, his name is Alec. He reminds me very much of me. He's very sharp, very witty, high confidence, low skill, just like his father. My oldest boy, he's a super athlete. Just made all American for his soccer team or all date for his soccer team. Very much like his mother, very quiet, hard worker, very, very consistent. So we got two great personalities there. My biggest concern, David, with real estate, is the fact of our industry. 10 people come in, 1 person makes it.
Yeah.
Tremendous pressure to put on a kid.
Yeah.
Come into one of the hardest industries and, be successful. So I'm very cautious and careful with that. My father has a construction company. So both of my boys are jumping from one sector to the other. Do I do construction? Do I do real estate? And, very much like shoesmith, blacksmith, to have somebody in the family that has made certain progress in a certain, area, they have to take a look at it and say, hey, do I want to jump in there? Do I want to do it? But I tell them all the time, hey guys, this is your fallback. I hope you find something that you're passionate about. I hope you fall in love with something.
Just go do something you're excited
that
about.
You're able to run with. And if not, this is your backup plan.
Does Dominic's your 18-year-old, right?
Yeah.
Does he have an idea of what direction he wants to go with?
No, I think they're both, listen, this generation is an iPhone, iPad, computer game.
Yeah.
They want to be TikTokers and influencers. I'm just kidding about that part. But
it is true, though.
Yeah.
Most of them do.
Yeah, right?
I look at my kids all the time and they're watching TikTokers and influencers. I go, why don't you be one instead of watching them all the time? I joke with them. I wanted my kids, at least one of them, to want to follow the empire, right? To want to continue to build this. And I got none of that. I got a future nurse, a future lawyer, and 2 future doctors.
Listen,
but hear me out.
You won that one.
I won that one, right? Yeah. What a tremendous win.
Yeah. Listen, for me, I want both of my kids to be happy. I want both of my kids, to find a partner, to live that life, and to take advantage of all the hard work that, their grandfather did, that their father did. And hopefully, to honor that work with, good involvement in the community, making a difference. But I really want them to find something they're passionate about, that really, listen, I wake up every single morning and I don't work. Jump out of bed, I do my real estate talk, I sign checks, I recruit, I train, but man, it's not work for me.
Yeah.
It's not work for me.
Yeah.
And if they can find something that gives
like
them that feel, man, I won. And the beauty of it is, hopefully, if I don't make any major mistakes, they're not going to have a financial worry, or they're not going to have a financial stress where, I'm going to be living out on the street, or I'm not going to have anything to eat. They're going to be able to build even higher from a bigger place than I was able to do it. So hopefully they recognize that opportunity and they take advantage of it wherever it takes them.
You said your definition of being a man is being able to protect your family.
Well, there's many, but I think for me, the priority is, my family. I'm here with a squad that I've decided to, build up and protect, and I love to death. I live for them. They're in my office. I have a big picture with all of them together. in different sectors. And whenever I'm down, whenever I'm unmotivated, I just look to that corner and
And you
reminds
keep
me
pushing.
of why I have that fire inside me.
And you come from a line of men who are built to protect their family
Well,
at enormous
Well,
personal
well,
costs.
well, listen, there's blacksmith, there's shoesmith. My last name is Guerra, so war is in my DNA.
And we talked about your dad leaving at 15. We talked about your mom at a young age. We talked about your uncle and everything that your uncle went through. And I mean, damn, you had a line of mentorship ahead of you to feel the way that you feel about protecting your family.
Definitely. Well, listen, at the end of the day, they didn't have a choice,
But you did.
Oh, listen, not really. Not if I'm a real man.
There you go.
Not if I'm a
That's
real
what I
man.
want to hear.
Yeah, not if I'm a real
That's
man.
what I want to hear. Yeah, that's exactly what I want to hear because, we go through the actual conversation of they had no choice because they had all these struggles. You didn't have those struggles, not equal to them. You had your own.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own, right? But also, like, you understand the definition of being a man.
Well, listen, I had a phenomenal example.
Yeah.
That laid out the cards. I would only be, foolish if I didn't take the cheat code and take it to myself.
Yeah. Your grandfather left everything in Cuba. Your father started in a monastery. You're about to become president of Florida Realtors, 3 generations that are what they are and created what they created. Does it feel like enough?
Does it feel like enough?
Or is there something that still feels like it needs to be satisfied?
You know what? I don't see it from that perspective. I will tell you this. I have blown past every expectation that I had of myself. I've outdreamed my dreams.
Gotcha.
Okay, and maybe because I had a low threshold from the very beginning. So for me, I am in a place of gratitude. I'm in a place of, I have a unique opportunity. Don't fuck it up.
Yeah.
Take advantage of it. Use this to, to follow your heart and do what you feel is right.
Interesting enough, we talk about your dad at the monastery. You come from you mentioned it in the podcast just now that you come from a Cuban Catholic family, but you consider yourself to be agnostic.
Yeah.
Is it that you're going to remain agnostic or you're just still working on faith and processing?
Oh, no, I think it's a journey forever. But I do believe in a higher being.
Okay.
I do believe in a higher being. And if I'm not mistaken, the definition of agnostic is believing in a higher being, just maybe not subscribing to the religions that are here. Right. Going to Catholic grade school and Catholic high school and even Catholic university, I'm very well versed in Christianity from Genesis to Revelations, Old Testament, New Testament, God-fearing God, forgiving God. I find my religion in my family. I feel that my God wants me to be home, wants me to take care of my kids, wants me to work hard, wants me to help other people. And my moral compass within, struggles with some of the beliefs that are out there that I don't subscribe to. For me, I'd rather commit to myself God that I have built in. And, I do pray every single day. I just don't name who I pray to, but whoever's up there listening. And, I pray for my family. I pray for, things that are important to me. But, I don't go to church. I don't go to synagogue. Denora's half Jewish.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I have a good story for you after. But for me, my religion is my family, my house, doing, 10 commandments, understanding, what's right, what's wrong, like I told you earlier, have a good, what I feel is, that schooling gave me a good moral compass. So I feel guilt all the time. I don't try not to do anything bad. I don't like it. Karma.
And that's the actual conversation you have
Yeah,
with yourself through the process.
For sure.
because-
Karma, the whole nine.
Yeah.
But for me, my God, the one that I have in my mind, wants me to be home every day with my family, wants me to take care of my kids, wants me to spend that extra time. And I find God
Do
in
good
that.
for others.
I find God in that part for me. I don't feel that I'm doing anything wrong. I don't feel that I'm going against any God. I'm doing right. I'm not trying not to lie,
Yeah.
trying not to steal,
Yeah,
trying not to
nothing wrong with
cheat,
that, man.
trying to do good. And, that's my compass. And, I think that a lot of that, what was really the indoctrination of being in a Catholic school, being, going to church, seeing the different dynamics of that, that for me left me with, I want to explore and I want to be, by myself. And this is, at the end of the day, as you get older and you rationalize, science comes in, all these different things, you're like, you know what? Maybe some of these stories are a little bit, different than what I expected. But if I keep myself in this path,
Yeah.
I can go to sleep every single night knowing that,
Yeah.
I'm happy with myself.
A lot of people come in here and they know exactly what path they're going down. And it's, I expected for you, I think, based on the answer that you gave me, to not really have an answer. And I would have respected that because everybody has their own journey, right? But you had an answer. You're like, hey, listen, and I used to think like you. There was a time where I said, I don't need to subscribe to the sheep. I know there's a higher being. I'm good with that, and I used to be like that, and something changed in my life, total other conversation. But, it's interesting how life and experience will make those adjustments, but the belief never changes. I would assume that you're very grateful for having the foundation to have the thought process you have today with Catholic education and so forth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
If that wasn't there, I don't know that.
listen, for me, I always say this, that like Catholic school tightened the moral compass in me. Guilt is a real feeling that I feel when I do things that are bad. I don't like it. I just try to stay away from it. I do better with a clean conscience. But for me, my church, my house, my church is,
It's beautiful.
my four walls, and honoring my wife, taking care of my kids, and trying to grow that. And, my 12 months of giving, that's my church as well. Those are ways that I find that outlet. I'm not a big fan of going into a big room, holding hands, singing songs, kneeling,
Yeah.
standing,
Yeah.
joy up and down.
It's a Neil Ben stance.
Yeah. So
Your Sunday morning workout.
listen, I think my God would rather say, man, go to brunch, take out the grandparents,
Yeah.
break some bread, laugh,
Yeah.
hold hands, spend
Yeah.
some time together.
Do you
know.
ever think maybe I'm missing out on a community of people?
Traditionally, not the people that I like.
Yeah. Okay.
To be honest with you.
Cool.
For sure, I'm missing out on a community, but I've made my communities other places.
You mentioned Denora's half Jewish. Tell me that story.
Yeah, it's an off camera story.
Oh, it's an off-camera story. All right. Sorry,
Yeah.
y'all. I want to hear that, though. You said that the decision to remain consistent was the moment that forged you. That consistency sounded simple until you actually had to try and sustain it through the years of nothing. What specifically were you consistent toward? And what do you think you'd had to kill off inside of you to go there?
So my consistency wasn't failing. I needed to fail as fast as possible. I couldn't give up in the direction that I wanted. And there was no clear path to it. So failing fast, figuring things out, keeping my head in the game when you weren't getting anything back, for me was the consistency that sharpened my tools, sharpened my resolute, built the stamina that I feel I can go anywhere and start from over.
Right.
Okay. Second part of your question was?
What did you feel you had to kill off inside of you to make that happen?
So what kill off or more man up, it was really the what was really the mindset. I needed to man up, not give any excuse. Look at the road ahead, keep my focus on, and maybe if I had to kill off was the doubt that I wasn't going to make it at the end.
Right.
I think the belief was, man, if I work hard, if I'm consistent, if I'm looking at my industry and if I'm looking at what's working and if I'm trying to implement it until I get it right, I'm going to get it right.
You're gonna get it right.
I'm going to get it right. I just need to keep my head in there and
Killing off the doubter.
keep on
inside of
failing.
you.
Keep on failing. Well, you know what? I've never really subscribed to the doubters, to be honest with you. You know,
But the one inside of you, though.
yeah,
the
no,
one, because there's always that voice that pulls up behind you and goes, "Yeah,
we call that the
you know?
imposter
Yeah.
syndrome.
Yeah. There's that voice, like when you have this big goal, there's a little voice that pops up somewhere. And oftentimes not even from someone else, just inside of you.
He's not that loud.
See, but he's loud for a lot of people. You've learned something along the way.
No, he comes
that
up.
has Tim, tuned him down, turned down that volume or made him more timid to come out and check in.
Yeah, no, it's a straight check. Get back in your box.
You told an interviewer once that nothing you got ever came easy. That it wasn't 1, 2, or 3 or magic. It was a lot of suffering, a lot of mistakes, a lot of financial tuitions. What was the financial tuition that hurt you the most? The one that you still think about sometimes? I mean, listen, I can tell you mine like this.
Yeah, I made thousands of them. But my biggest financial decision, obviously during the real estate boom, taking advantage of those negative amortizations, 120% loans was the stupidest decisions that I've ever made. From a financial perspective, I will tell you that from a practicing perspective, the amount of money, David, that I have spent on drones, I want to say I've bought over 40 drones and I've crashed them into walls, parks, and waters, trying to get the best shot for some of my of our listings has been the biggest catalyst. And if I ever lost money, it was tuition. It was part of the journey to get me to find out where my money was best spent.
What was the one that hurt the most, though? What was the tuition that you paid that hurt the most? That you can still think about it today and go, oh, every time I think about that, I need a drink.
Man, you know what? So you know what? Nothing that I took that personal, but I will tell you that during the market crash, when I had no money and I had to invest in video marketing, I bought a Panasonic DVX, and the frame was too small. So it was for like a motion picture and I needed a wide angle. So I just spent $3,000 on a camera that I really couldn't use long term. So that was probably one of my biggest pain points. Obviously in the real estate industry, some of my biggest financial impacts have been lawsuits, previous lawsuits, from these, attorneys that are going after everybody, those have been but I don't even take those personal, that's not my fault, to be honest with you.
I mean, it is what it is.
But no, nothing really major besides those silly ones that I've taken personal.
You said that failure got you here.
100%.
Right? Over and over again.
Failing fast.
What's the big failure that nobody knows about? The one that humanized you in a way that your success story wouldn't be what it is without it.
Well, I'm pretty much an open book, David. So most people know about it. But one of my biggest failures was I was married before, and I'm sure very similar to you. And I'm sure when you first get married, you wanted success, and it didn't pan out that way. I think my other biggest failure was during the market shift, and not seeing the market shift, being naive, believing that things weren't going to change, and not having the IQ to shift. And when the market shifted, not being quick enough to be one of those people that really took advantage of that market. Right. I was young, dumb. I didn't have a good financial IQ. Nowadays, if I were to go back during those times, I'd be in a different position with a different IQ. So, but I try not to look back.
It's interesting how that happens, right? Like you end up in a crazy big situation and you think to yourself, dude, I'll never have this situation. And sometimes it's a small thing. Like I remember one time I was in the Marine Corps. I was an enlisted Marine and I won some prize or something and I was invited to an officer's ball. And so I'm walking around the officer's ball with another enlisted person and we're listening to the conversations or trying to get involved in conversations. And I was so outpaced on conversations. These officers were all college graduates, they had a little more experience. They were all older than me. And I just was not Like I couldn't even fit it. There was, even if they were like, "Come on, buddy, come talk to us," I'd have had nothing to say. No, hello, And I remember leaving there and thinking to myself, that's when I enrolled in school. I remember leaving there thinking, that'll never happen to me again.
I got to level up.
Yeah. I started reading. I went back to school. I got a master's degree. Like, I went the limit. I went crazy. You're about to step into the biggest public leadership role of your career. Okay. 2027 Florida Realtors president. You have a 500 agent brokerage. You've got a family. What keeps you up at night about this success, this sort of success? What keeps you up at night about?
The success doesn't keep me up at night. I think it's the fear of failure at night, to be honest with you. Success for me, especially in that arena, you don't really feel it. To me, I'm going to be honest with you. It's tough to be involved in leadership of Florida Realtors. You have so many eyes on you. There's so many moving parts that are on there. You have to meet people's expectations. Very much like you said, you have to walk into a room and people expect you to know everything about what they're talking about.
Right.
And you have those pressures and expectations on yourself as well. And the industry is moving at such a dynamic rate that it's a full-time job to keep your IQ where it needs to be, to have conversations, to make decisions, to be involved, to delegate, to administrate. So for me, I think
scared of fucking that up.
So I think success is December 31st, 2027, when I'm done, that I get to look back and say, man, you know what? We had these issues. We tackled it
through them.
We tackled it with intent, with smart thinking, smart people. We did it right for our industry. That's where I'll look back and say, man, life is good. I got lucky.
So how do you correlate these two things, right? Because in one direction you think fail fast, fail strong, learn from it, but in the other direction you're completely scared of failing certain things.
Well, I'm scared of the bottom. So I'm scared of. I'm not scared of failing as much as I'm scared of going back to the bottom. I think it's probably the best way to say it. I think failing fast allows you to identify what works. And then you take what works and you double down and you speed it up. And I've learned that from my experience. Yeah. I think if you fail, then you should have been out of that industry and gone somewhere else.
Yeah.
But I think that people who are in the industry, who have an IQ of how it works, we're still going to try different things.
Yeah.
And we have to, because you know what? We're entrepreneurs. Our business is moving at a speed. And if we're not changing with it, we're going to be behind. And part of those changes is failure. Yeah. But the faster I fail, the faster I know what I need to do, and the faster I can go focus on that.
Last question for you.
Go for it.
You're sitting across from another man right now that's going through his own fire. Maybe it's a crash. Maybe it's a marriage situation. Maybe he's watching his identity fall apart. I had asked you this previously and you said you wanted to think about it. What would you tell him? What would you tell him right now? What would you say to him if you had the time to sit across from him and give him a message he could walk away with? What would it be?
I'd tell him the truth, David. I would look at him in the eye and I would say, look at me where I'm at today. Where I'm at today, I've been beaten. I've been bloodied. I've been dragged through the floor. I thought that there was no end in sight. As a matter of fact, I was convinced that there was no solution. But at the end of the day, I stayed strong. I remained. I believed that not in myself, but there was a better outcome at the end of the day. I believe that wholeheartedly. I told myself, who better than me to go on that journey? No matter how much doubt I had to trust myself. And the reason why was because in my heart, I was working hard. I was getting up every single day, doing what I felt I needed to do. In my heart, I felt that I was looking for opportunity, even if I was failing, but my eyes were there. And I knew that it was only a matter of time where after the rain, the sun comes out. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but I do know that if you hold out, good things will come. There's better things at the end of the day, that the bottom doesn't always stay there. That if you're in the bottom, you can only really go up.
Yeah.
And that's tough to see, David, when you're in the bottom, when you're in your darkest moments. And sometimes you don't see it. But experience, has taught me at 48 years old, looking back at my life, that during the toughest times, my biggest troubles and tribulations weren't as bad as I thought they were.
Right.
They weren't as, it was really me in my own mind. I needed to step out of my way and allow myself to grow, allow myself to suffer, allow myself to go through those emotions,
Yeah.
but know that it wasn't the end, and it wasn't going to define me, and it wasn't going to make me. So what would I tell them? I would tell them is keep your chin up. You know what? Change your mindset. Shift, move, fail, but don't stay stagnant.
It's the man up moment.
Yeah,
you were talking
don't
about
cry in the
earlier.
corner. I want to see you suffer, but suffer from failing, suffer from trying hard enough, suffer from hitting your head on the wall,
Yeah.
but don't suffer behind behind the desk. And I will tell you this, David, I've lived a very charmed life. I've had incredible opportunities. I've had incredible parents, but it doesn't take away the fact that, mental health is a big deal.
Yeah.
You go to my Instagram,
Yeah.
you see all my successes. What you don't see there, David, is, sometimes, I battled depression. I've had issues where my mind wasn't in the right state of mind. And, you go through those emotions, you go through
Yeah, of
those
course.
times. And sometimes you have to go through them with family, with kids, with parties, with events, with trainings. And, it's tough to put your game face on. But I think that's where you have to force yourself to rise above, where you have to say, you know what, man, I'm better than this. I can do it. I gotta do it. I'm gonna do it. And you have to have that belief inside, and you have to have that push. And it's tough to do it when you don't see it. But I will tell you that once you see it, you believe it. And when it comes again, it's even easier to deal with adversity.
And then
Because
you
know
look
what?
back and think,
Yeah,
wasn't that?
wasn't that bad? Or, man, you know what? I'm so glad I champed out of it. I'm so glad that I got my shit straight, and I put my stuff in order, and look at what I was able to accomplish. I will tell you this, that during the real estate crash, you would have told me, hey, you're going to build up a firm of a certain amount of agents. You're going to be chairman of you're going to be this. I would have said, are you crazy? Are you crazy? I'm trying to pay my light bill. I'm lucky if I just, stay married and stay alive.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, I was going to accomplish these things. So I would say, keep it on,
I know I said that would be the last question, but I feel like if I was watching this right now, I would have one more. That one more would be, you mentioned right now that, you've lived the charmed life, but it didn't come without trials and tribulations. It didn't come without depression.
No.
And so how do you lift yourself out of the depression? How do you get past it? How do you give yourself the energy to wake up in the morning and go keep doing it in the hopes and the dreams that you'll come out of whatever it is that you're going through, right? How do you,
Yeah.
where does that come from?
Listen, how, I don't know. I'm going to tell you that it took everything that I had, to get through those tough times and keep on, marching along. When you feel that everything's falling apart, where you feel that, in your heart, you want to go into a room and not come out, where nothing makes you happy, where nothing is working out right, to go and have to stand in front of people, smile, charm, talk, train, deal with your family, it's tough. And how did I do it? It took everything that I had.
Yeah.
Everything that I had. I had to put all my emotions aside. I had to, focus on what were my priorities and really work on that mental space of saying, get out of it. Shake it off, man. Shake it off. Shake it off. And, depression is something people don't talk a lot about. And we all go through it in our own ways.
Yep.
Men especially, we hold it back. We're tough. We don't want to share our core. And, luckily for me, I'll tell you that for sure I've had my ups and my downs. Usually my downs have been during my greatest accomplishments, as crazy as that sounds.
Yeah.
The higher some of my greatest accomplishments have been, hit with some of my lowest emotions.
Why is that?
Timing, life, there's no rules to feeling great and doing great and accomplishing at the same time.
Right.
But I will tell you that for me, David, it took everything that I had. It took every ounce of effort to put up that facade, to keep on going on. And, and just it's self-help, reading, praying to that God that
Yeah. Yeah.
hoping to climb out of that hole. you know, I'm leaning a lot on family, friends. But I think you know, it's one of the hardest things to, at least for me, one of the most challenging to keep on that. And you know, depression doesn't come for a day or for an hour. You know, it can come for months and even
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. I oftentimes find it difficult to snap out of depression, and I've learned over the years, depression runs in my family, especially on my mom's side. And I've learned over the years to like just say to myself, "Hey,
Snap out of it, bro.
don't fall in that line of people."
Yeah, but let me
You know
tell
what
you,
I mean?
it's debilitating, man.
It really is.
It'll stop you. It'll stop you in your tracks.
Yep.
And you know, and it's tough to give the best version of you when you have that draped on you for a while. Um, but I will tell you, you know, right now I'm in a phenomenal state. I'm in a phenomenal space, thank God. And I'm so looking forward to, you know, seeing my kids graduate high school, go to college, go to Florida leadership, you know, and you know, see what that next, you know, couple
The
chapters
next
are.
step is.
Yeah, man, I'm super excited. I've never been in a better place financially, emotionally, mentally, physically for the most part. So let me knock on wood that you know,
Yeah.
because we can lose that on in a minute. But luckily, you know, it's a good spot. Um, but again, all those experiences, Dave, you know, at 48 years old, shaped me who I am today. You know, if I ever go through any of those things, business wise, emotional wise, you know, my mindset has shifted, has matured. You know, you sort of get
Yeah.
a little bit smarter, wiser, and better with the lashes that you get through the years.
This is the kind of stuff I want people to watch our show. And also to like walk away, something you said was probably the most important thing that you said here was, I'm 47 years old. Took me this long to get here. And
Still learning.
because people are, they're looking for that overnight success and they're getting depressed about the fact that things are not working out for them instantaneously.
Listen, I call
You
that
know?
I call that success.
Yeah.
The internet teaches
It's,
you
oh my
get
God.
rich
Yeah.
quick, and this
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
next
Yeah.
generation doesn't
And then
understand.
it's get rich quick if you sign up for my $7,000 course. You know what I mean?
And anyone can do it. Number one,
Ah.
not anyone can do it. Number two, what they don't show is the decades to 2 decades of struggle,
Yeah.
of failure.
To achieve that.
Yeah.
I always used to tell people, man, just come to my trainings. Let me coach you. Let me teach you. I'm doing so much for free so that you don't have to run through the brick walls that I ran through.
Yeah, but that's success porn. I'm telling you, these
Smart.
kids are getting, you know, social media, looking at 0 to 100 success, you know, bullshit online.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
they're
I'm
coming in
22
there.
years old and I drive a
Yeah,
Lamborghini.
and they're coming into the workforce, you know, thinking
Yeah.
that they deserve more and wanting to
Yeah.
go 0 to 100, and they don't understand that, you know, reputation takes decades to build.
Yeah.
Unless you're born with a silver spoon, which I
Yeah.
wasn't. I was born in Hialeah,
No,
as you
no.
clearly noted.
Listen, by far.
I had to grind every single deal that I had. And
Listen,
you
how
know,
many kids born with a silver spoon are crackheads right now?
Yeah, no, no.
You know what I mean? Because they just didn't follow the method or the path or didn't have any drive or whatever it was. Whatever it was, George, I'm grateful for you
Thank
for
you.
doing this with me.
Thank you for the invitation. It's been a big honor.
Man, I really want people to see the journey. I want them to think about the movement of your parents and your grandparents and your uncle, rest in peace, and and your growth and how you grew and the things you went through and that it wasn't always great, and now you're in a position because you went through all that. Now you're in a position where you feel really at peace with what's happening in your life and you're excited for the future, and that's a hell of a blessing, man. And that honestly just shows the consistency and the hard work that you put behind it and the people that you surround yourself with, which I think is incredibly important. Thanks for doing this with me, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you for the invite. I appreciate it.
Awesome, brother. Every man has a story. Some hide it, some bury it. But when you share it, it becomes the torch for someone else's path. Remember, the fire doesn't burn to break you, it burns to build you. If today's conversation moved you, share it. And if you're in the middle of your own fire, keep walking. You are not alone. This is Forged into Man. I'm David Adam Kurz. Until next time, stay strong, stay grounded, and stay forged.